Chapter 210. Hai Rui Entertainment announces the signing of Tongning, officially becoming Tongning's new employer. Top entertainment companies signing Tongning, cheers for them. Hai Rui beating Qingtian, what is your ban amount to? Hai Rui signing Tongning is a mystery. How much are Qingtian's words worth? Hai Rui signed Tongning? As soon as everyone heard the news, they were dumbfounded. How unbelievable was this? This was Hai Rui they were talking about. Hai Rui, the company with the highest status in the entertainment industry. How could they sign Tongning? But as soon as they saw Hai Rui Entertainment officially announce the signing of Tongning, they had no choice but to believe it. In the end, they had no choice but to believe it. It was real. They weren't dreaming. Just 10 minutes ago, Qingtian had announced their ban on Tongning. Yet 10 minutes later, Tongning had signed with Hai Rui and become one of their models. The reporters looked at each other speechlessly, especially when they saw Luo Hao continuously answering questions about Tongning and continuously exposing her from the side. He also emphasized that since Tongning had already been banned, there was nothing to be afraid of. He was determined to continue down the path of defaming Tongning until the end. The reporters suddenly felt very awkward, especially as Luo Hao continued to express his disdain towards Tongning. The reporters really wanted to remind him to stop talking because he was being too stupid. If he continued, they would get goosebumps. The scene before them was both funny and ironic. A few of the reporters at the scene even received phone calls from their own companies. At a time like this, it was time to grab the headlines. Who would bother interviewing Qingtian? The smarter reporters were already waiting outside Hai Rui's entrance. As for the reporter closest to Luo Hao, he pulled out his phone and showed it to him. Director Luo, is this your so-called ban on Tongning? Luo Hao furrowed his brows in confusion. He then focused his attention on the palm-sized screen and saw a line of words clearly displayed in the middle of the screen. Hai Rui announces signing on Tongning. Qingtian Entertainment has been slapped in the face and thrown into an awkward situation? Luo Hao's eyes grew wide in disbelief as he grabbed the phones of others. Without exception, they were all filled with news of Hai Rui signing on Tongning. Just 10 minutes after they announced their contract termination, Hai Rui actually turned Qingtian into the laughingstock of the industry in 10 minutes. Luo Hao returned the phone to the reporter. His mind suddenly went blank. Looking at the reporters' faces, it was as if they were all laughing at him, with sarcasm, because as soon as he blacklisted Tongning, Hai Rui signed her. Banned. What did you say? Who do you think you are? Does Qingtian have a place in the entertainment industry? At this moment, under the siege of the reporters, Luo Hao suddenly panicked. His face turned red, and a sense of shame and anger suddenly drilled into his limbs from the soles of his feet. It's so embarrassing. The reporters at the bottom of the stairs couldn't help but say this because they could feel the humiliation. Afterwards, Lanqi led the security out the front door and brought the unconscious Luo Hao back to her office. Luo Hao didn't feel anything, but when he was out of the flashing lights outside, he suddenly sat on the ground along the wall, looking depressed and panicked. Lanqi looked at the man sitting on the floor as her throat burned. Are you satisfied now? Compared to Hai Rui giving me a slap in the face, I feel like I've been stripped naked and humiliated by Hai Rui. Naked. From now on, no matter where I go, I will always be naked. In everyone's eyes, I will be a joke. Not only Lanqi, everyone in Qingtian felt the same way. Hai Rui's slap in the face was too loud. Luo Hao's eyes were empty. He had no idea what Lanqi had said. It wasn't until the sound of Lanqi's high heels faded away that he wiped his face and hugged his knees as he sat in a corner. He suddenly didn't know how he was going to face people from now on. Qingtian's interview had ended, but Hai Rui's had just begun. Fang Yu wanted to give Qingtian a breather. He couldn't let Luo Hao face the second wave of attacks so soon. Standing on the stage, Fang Yu was in a good mood. He wasn't sure if Tongning had seen Luo Hao's face a moment ago, but even through the television screen he felt embarrassed on behalf of the jerk. Of course, for Hai Rui to announce the signing of Tongning at this critical juncture, they had to bear the burden of Tongning's scandals. Why would Hai Rui sign a model with a murderous reputation? Director Fang, is Hai Rui joking with us? Today is not April Fool's Day. The reporters began to attack Fang Yu. In other words, why would they pick up a piece of trash like Tongning? So April Fool's Day allows you to play with the media. I'll remember next time. The reason why Fang Yu was able to become the artist director of Hai Rui was because he was extremely good at dealing with reporters. His PR was flawless and his marketing was also on point. Why would Hai Rui sign Tongning at a time like this? Fang Yu glanced at the man, the corners of his mouth curved upwards as he laughed. It seems I've already answered your question. Each reporter only has one chance to ask a question. When we first entered the venue, I already reminded you to take advantage of this opportunity. The reporter's face alternated between green and white. Her first question was whether Hai Rui was joking or not. After learning their lesson, the reporters that followed were a little more cautious towards Fang Yu. Tongning is a murderer. Why would Hai Rui sign her? After hearing these words, Fang Yu glanced at the reporter's work badge and replied coldly. A reporter is a profession that uses a timely, truthful, effective, objective and fair approach to disseminate information to the public. If you search for this term online, you can find it everywhere. May I ask, what have you done? Another reporter held onto his work badge and turned his face away awkwardly. Why would Hai Rui announce the signing of Tongning at a time like this? In that case, what kind of opportunity do you think is appropriate? Fang Yu asked. At least, when the people no longer hate her. Oh, in that case, she may never get the chance to join Hai Rui again. She has already been wrongly accused 100 times by heartless reporters and keyboard players. Fang Yu's reply was sharp and to the point. Isn't Hai Rui afraid of being slandered because of Tongning? Tongning has so many anti-fans. Hai Rui has never tried to please anti-fans. There's no other reason, it's because of the darkness in their hearts. When they judge others as ugly, they have no idea that they themselves may have a mouthful of buck teeth. When they deny other people's hard work, they have no idea that it's because they themselves haven't worked hard enough. They even think that other people's hard work has a strong background and unspoken rules. Boycott Tongning? Do you dare to use your real name to boycott her? But the incident between Tongning and Han Xiner is real. The reporter added. Chapter 211. Plus, there are some anti-fans online that have gone from condemning Cheng Tian to attacking Hai Rui. Fang Yu was silent for a few seconds. Everyone assumed he hadn't expected this result. However, Fang Yu suddenly turned to the reporters and said, 10 a.m. tomorrow, Hai Rui will be holding an official press conference for Tongning's contract signing ceremony. When the time comes, Tongning will be attending. Anti-fans and reporters alike, what evidence do you have? Bring it all out. Let everyone see if Tongning has killed anyone, broken her promise and done any of the dirty things that you are all accusing her of. Hai Rui is not Qingtian Entertainment. We do not operate with the concept of vagueness. No unspoken rules will ever exist in Hai Rui. Of course, Hai Rui will never tolerate their artists being framed or humiliated. Since Tongning has already signed on, Hai Rui will definitely be open and transparent. Dear reporters, please be on time tomorrow. When the time comes, there will be an even bigger scandal. Fang Yu firmly expressed Hai Rui's attitude and forcefully placed Tongning into their territory. As long as it was their artist, they would never abandon them. They couldn't be like Cheng Tian, who would remove them at the slightest sign of trouble. This kind of intensity once again slapped Cheng Tian's PR and efficiency in the face. It made the reporters at the scene feel that Hai Rui's protection of Tongning was not just empty words. The netizens continued to curse, but not as fiercely as before. Some people had opinions towards Hai Rui, but when they thought about how their idols and celebrities all came from Hai Rui, they couldn't help but want to believe in Hai Rui and Tongning. Cheng Tian Entertainment was currently being looked down upon by the industry because of how embarrassing they were. Although various entertainment companies competed with each other on a daily basis, it was rare for them to be slapped in the face by Hai Rui within 10 minutes. Cheng Tian Entertainment had become the biggest laughingstock in the industry. Some bored fans even took screenshots of Luo Hao's expressions and turned them into emojis to express their entertainment mindset. At the same time, the agency was afraid of offending Hai Rui. So all the employees secretly placed resignation letters on Lan Shi's desk. Although it couldn't be said that Cheng Tian had completely collapsed, at least. In fact, it was even more serious than Lan Shi's headline incident. Only the anti-fans remained firm as they continued to oppose Tang Ning. The hatred that had been building up for so long had exploded. They couldn't be afraid just because Tang Ning had signed with Hai Rui. I wonder how Tang Ning managed to sign with Hai Rui. This despicable cheap model has no regard for human life. Even if she changes to another agency, she would simply be changing to a bigger fig leaf. I used to think that Hai Rui was a clean stream that couldn't be surpassed. But now even they are starting to go downhill. He even signed someone like Tang Ning. If it wasn't for our fans, I wonder how much Hai Rui's shares would have fallen. I heard there's going to be a big leak tomorrow. Let's sit back and watch as Hai Rui clears the floor for Tang Ning. At this moment, Tang Ning was sitting beside Mo Ting as she flipped through the news. When she saw that her name was linked to Hai Rui and was being scolded by anti-fans, she lifted her head and looked at Mo Ting with an apologetic expression. Mo Ting did not turn his head, nor did he look into Tang Ning's eyes. But he knew what she was thinking, so he said, "Don't tell me you think this is all Hai Rui can do? Tomorrow all you need to do is dress up and attend the event. Fang Yu will take care of everything else." "You still haven't told me who my manager is." Tang Ning put down her laptop and turned her body slightly. "The higher-ups are currently discussing," Mo Ting replied calmly. "What, you don't believe me?" "I'm a little scared." Tang Ning replied straightforwardly. Although she had mentally prepared herself, she still didn't have the confidence to conquer Hai Rui. Especially when it came to her relationship with Mo Ting. What would Hai Rui think if it was revealed? What would the public think? Hearing the word scared, Mo Ting finally stopped what he was doing. He turned around and looked into Tang Ning's eyes. "It's rare to hear the word scared come out of your mouth. But just because you joined Hai Rui, does that mean you are no longer a model? Does that mean you are no longer Tang Ning?" Tang Ning lowered her head and thought for a few seconds. When she lifted her head again, her face was slightly red. "Doesn't that mean from now on, everything I do belongs to you?" Seeing this, the corners of Mo Ting's lips curved up slightly. This was a joy that came from the bottom of his heart. "I finally have an excuse to control you openly. You can't go easy on me." Mo Ting nodded his head. "I will only be stricter with you because I know you like it. So, can you rest assured and sign the contract now?" Lu Che stood behind the couple with a handsome smile on his face. Not for any other reason, but because he enjoyed watching a married couple fight side by side. Long Jie sat to one side and stole a glance at Lu Che every now and then. Especially when she saw him smiling like a fool at the couple, she felt her mood lighten up. She loved his silly look. Lu Che sensed the heat in Long Jie's gaze, so he lifted his head confusedly. However, Long Jie quickly averted her gaze and pretended not to notice anything. She was simply looking at the news on her phone. Regardless of everything, the news of Hai Rui signing Tang Ning had already caused a huge commotion within the industry. Especially when Hai Rui's artists attended all sorts of events, they were constantly asked their opinions on Tang Ning or Hai Rui's actions. But the majority of Hai Rui's people were able to express their opinions with a smile. Is there something wrong with Tang Ning's character? I'm not sure, but Hai Rui has never signed an artist with a bad character. So, if my fans trust me, I hope they can also trust my agency. Tang Ning. I really like her runway shows, especially her long legs. Now that they are fellow apprentices, I can see them more often. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. I've told her manager many times in private to go watch Tang Ning's runway shows. I'm speechless. How come the agency is taking so long to sign her? They're so slow. I'm so happy that Tang Ning is joining the big family of Hai Rui. Slap. Hai Rui's artists expressed their anticipation for Tang Ning to join the agency on different occasions. This showed that Hai Rui was extremely united. They were well aware of their position and were confident in themselves. Even if they were to compete, they would compete generously. I hope the agency can clear Tang Ning's name as soon as possible. I have faith in the agency, so I also have faith in Tang Ning's character. Anti-fans are the most annoying. I can't wait for the agency to show evidence, and for the press conference tomorrow. Chapter 212. All of Hai Rui's artists, regardless of whether they had jobs or not, were harassed by the reporters. But apart from a small minority of artists that were too busy to respond, the majority of artists, regardless of their status, expressed their trust in the agency and their expectations for Tongning. To a large extent, this displayed the demeanor of a leading company. Of course, it also represented Mo Ting's absolute dominance in the industry. Late at night, after a busy day at work, Mo Ting returned home to find Tongning working out at the gym in a thin set of sportswear. He was silent for a few seconds. He was originally afraid she would catch a cold. But after thinking for a moment, he returned to the locker room, changed into a black training uniform, and went to the gym. Tongning was already 26 years old. If she wanted to maintain her perfect figure, she would need to put in a lot more effort than a young girl. So seeing her covered in sweat, Mo Ting couldn't help but feel his heart ache. He walked behind her, grabbed the dumbbells from her hand, and pressed her back against his chest. It's not wrong to have the highest expectations for yourself, but it's not this kind of reckless training method. I have no choice. I don't have a coach. Tongning leaned against Mo Ting and sighed tiredly. But if I continue to train like I used to, my body won't be able to take it. Mo Ting pushed her and placed the dumbbells on the floor. He then pulled out a towel and walked over to Tongning to wipe her sweat. How can there be no coach? I'll train with you. Tongning was stunned for a moment. She suddenly took a few steps back and removed his shirt. Not long after, an extremely attractive male body was revealed in front of her eyes. His perfect 8-pack abs were clearly defined and his muscles were firm. It was a healthy bronze color that made people obsessed with him. Seeing how bold the woman was, Mo Ting's lips curved upwards. You've seen it so many times. Are you still not satisfied? President Mo, from now on, I hope you can wear no clothes at home. Mo Ting took the opportunity to hook his arm around her waist and press his chest against hers. Do you like to watch? Who wouldn't want to see a view like this? Tongning asked. But only I can see it. Only I can see it. Mo Ting was satisfied with her possessiveness. He lowered his head and placed a kiss on her lips. After a while he held onto her waist and said, Your upper body is strong enough. You should train your stomach muscles more. Do you think my body is not soft enough? I couldn't resist not wanting you. Yet you still took the initiative to provoke me? Mo Ting deliberately pinched her waist and explained, It's because it's good for women to train their lower abdomen muscles when giving birth. Then practice with me. Mo Ting lowered his head and pressed the tip of his nose against Tongning's. It's not like I'm going to give birth. I want you to give birth for me. Tongning's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. The breathtaking scent of hormones was right in front of her. With such a beautiful scene, forget about training her stomach. Even if she was asked to run 10 kilometers outside, she would be willing. Mo Ting looked at Tongning and lifted her in his arms. At a time like this, who would be in the mood to train? They went straight back to the bedroom and barged into the bathroom. The two of them made love once and again until their strength was exhausted. Then they stood in the kitchen late at night and cooked a bowl of noodles for each other. Sitting at the dining table, Tongning looked at Mo Ting, who was wearing a nightgown, and shook her head. It seemed it was time to hire a female coach. Otherwise, if he really became a coach, 9 out of 10 times he would end up in bed. Mo Ting saw through her thoughts as he returned to his normal expression and cleared his throat. I couldn't resist today, but I won't do it again. Tongning tilted her head and glared at Mo Ting. Did you think I would believe you? As long as you don't pounce on me, I'll be fine. In reality, even Tongning wasn't confident. But to have someone like this, no matter what she did, he would stay by her side, help her tirelessly and enjoy being with her. Tongning's heart was filled with a blissful feeling. With this thought in mind, Tongning placed the egg in her bowl onto Mo Ting's plate. In our home, you are no longer just my husband and boss, you now have another identity, my coach. So President Mo, you have worked very hard. Will you still be able to leave me in the future? Tongning shook her head obediently. I can't. Hurry up and eat. Get some rest later. I will be holding a press conference tomorrow morning. Tongning nodded her head. She couldn't wait to become better, to become the best, to become worthy of what Emoting had done for her, because she wanted to be with Emoting forever. Tomorrow, she would set sail once again from Hairue. This time, she was going to successfully reach the top of the fashion industry. Afterwards, Emoting carried her back to the bedroom and lay in bed beside her, coaxing her to sleep. Unknowingly, Tongning's eyes began to tear up. Emoting looked down at her and asked, "Why are you crying?" "I've been treated cruelly by this world before, but now, I am being treated gently. Only those that have been treated gently know how to love others. Did you think I would have thought of this before I met you?" Emoting laughed as he lay down and pulled Tongning into his embrace. "At first, I wondered if you would ever get used to this kind of calmness. If the 16-year-old Tongning met the 22-year-old Emoting, we may have argued and broken up because of our youthful impulsiveness. But the 26-year-old Tongning met the 32-year-old Emoting. We will simply support each other and live a long life." Emoting smiled as he lowered his head and placed a kiss on Tongning's ear. He then wrapped his arms around her and fell asleep together. This time he could finally use his own strength to send Tongning on her journey. The next morning, the anti-fans compiled a list of Tongning's 3 crimes and requested for Hairue to give them a positive response. This was Feng Yu's message. He wanted anti-fans and reporters to present evidence to anyone that had any doubts about Tongning, and to question her. As for the anti-fans' outburst, the incident with Han Shiner was merely the trigger. However, Tongning's frequent appearance on the top searches caused many people to pay a heavy price. So, those that hated her began to dig up all the things that she had experienced in the past, and created hype over and over again. "Tongning, even if you have Hairue backing you, we are still going to rip off a layer of skin from you today. I have no reason to hate Tongning. Are you going to bite me? Tongning, there are so many people that hate you. You really need to find your own reasons. You are about to start clearing your name. Unfortunately, with me around, you will never be able to clear your name." Chapter 213. This was the reception hall of Hairue Entertainment. Amidst the flashing lights, Feng Yu sat solemnly at the podium. Beside him sat the quiet and low-profile Tongning. The reporters and fans had once praised Tongning for standing aloof from the world. But now, from their perspective, Tongning's low profile and introverted demeanor were all for show. She was scheming behind the scenes. They hated Tongning like this. They couldn't wait to tear off her mask of hypocrisy and get her out of everyone's sight. They wanted her to know the power of public scrutiny. Feng Yu understood what the people below were thinking. So, after scanning the room, he said, "From today onwards, Tongning is an artist under Hairue. But I am aware that there is a lot of controversy surrounding Tongning. Since I've already made my decision yesterday, today, I will satisfy the curiosity of the media and fans. Didn't you all prepare a lot of questions for Tongning? In that case, she is right there. You can ask your questions now. But I have one condition. I want you to ask them one at a time." Most of the reporters had their notebooks filled with questions waiting to be asked. They couldn't wait to use their notebooks as exercise books and wait for Tongning to answer them. "I would like to ask Miss Tongning to explain the entire Han Shiner incident." The reporters knew Feng Yu was an expert in Tai Chi, so they learned from their mistakes and only asked one question. They wanted Tongning to explain the entire Han Shiner incident from the beginning. Tongning glanced at Feng Yu and he nodded his head, gesturing for her to relax and answer whatever she wanted. Tongning turned her gaze back to the reporters, the live broadcast and the audience. "I did try to find a match for Shiner's kidney, but after terminating my contract with Tianyi, Shiner did not contact me again. I found out about Shiner's illness at the same time as you all. That is the entire story." "You're lying. According to Han Shiner's good friend, she tried to contact you multiple times, but you insulted her and even cursed her to die." Faced with the reporter's sharp questions, Tongning laughed and replied, "Han Shiner's good friend? Have you confirmed it? Have you seen her in person?" The reporter froze for a moment and was suddenly speechless. "But you did promise Han Shiner to save her, but she died. For you to say something like this, I don't think it's too much for me to slap you across the face. Tongning's voice was extremely cold. Reporter, how did you find out Han Xiner died? If you casually said the word dead, without investigating the facts, then how did you get your reporter's certificate? If you investigate and still say that Xiner is dead, then I think that you have evil intentions, because you are extremely vicious. Tongning, Han Xiner has already disappeared. Didn't you know? You purposely disposed of the corpse to cover up your crime, didn't you? After hearing this, Tongning finally realized what kind of rumors had spread about her in just a few short days. I'll say it again, Han Xiner is not dead. What evidence do you have? Why don't you show me the evidence? If I can show you evidence, will you kneel down and apologize? Tongning suddenly asked the aggressive female reporter. Kneel? Don't you think you've gone too far? Tongning? The reporter laughed in ridicule. She felt Tongning was telling the biggest joke in the world. I've gone too far? Have you ever thought about how the rumors you spread will affect me? Do you think I deserve to have my reputation destroyed? Fine. As long as you can show me the evidence, I will kneel down. There were so many people present who heard and saw it. Tongning and Feng Yu looked at each other. They then asked Yuan to push Han Xiner through the main entrance and into the reception hall, appearing in front of everyone. Han Xiner looked at the people that were relentlessly chasing after Tongning and said in a loud and clear voice, I am Han Xiner. As she spoke, she even pulled out her identification. Feng Yu knew how much these reporters wanted the world to be in chaos. The reporters looked at the woman that had suddenly appeared in the reception hall in shock. Didn't she go missing? Didn't Tongning deal with her? The world sure is big and full of strange things. I simply had surgery because my illness flared up, yet when I woke up, I heard that I had died. Are the media brainless these days? Han Xiner's personal appearance indeed surprised the reporters. How could the person in question appear like this? Was this really Han Xiner? Seeing everyone looking at her like she deserved a scolding, and since she was Tongning's fan, Han Xiner asked Yuan to help her up. She then turned to everyone present and said, Right now, I really want to swear. Are you all crazy? How come I didn't even know I had died? Since when did I, Han Xiner, need you reporters to seek justice for me? Let me tell you, Tongning has never owed me a kidney. Since you all are so kind and charitable, why don't you give me one of your kidneys? As for my friend, she was created by Cheng Tian's artist director, Luo Hao, in order to frame Tongning. Didn't you want evidence? Here, I'll give you evidence. After speaking, Han Xiner gestured for Yuan to hand over the evidence that Lu Che had collected from the nurse. There was a voice recording, photos that were secretly taken, Luo Hao's contact details, and the nurse's bank account number. The reporters continuously passed it around. In the end, Feng Yu placed it on the big screen behind him. It was obvious everything was planned by Luo Hao and the media had been led by the nose. I don't know how evil the people that spread the rumor about my death have. All I know is the media is an accomplice, Han Xiner said in an extremely sharp tone. If you still think you know how to write the word shame, then from today onwards, you will no longer have the face to continue being reporters. Of course, those shameless people will continue to use their cameras to harm others. Han Xiner didn't die and Tongning didn't do what you guys are imagining. Plus, she has never forgotten about my condition. She has already found a suitable kidney for me, and I will be receiving surgery soon. I know better than you whether she is well or not. If you continue to use this incident to slander Tongning, then I will cooperate with Hai Rue Entertainment to sue the unscrupulous media. When that time comes, you will have to bear the consequences. If you can't control your own mouths, then let the law do it. Feng Yu looked at Han Xiner in admiration. If this child recovered from her illness, he might actually consider making her his successor. He had only said these words once, yet Han Xiner remembered them all. Hearing Han Xiner's warning, the media suddenly fell silent. As for the reporter from earlier, her face turned red. She had promised to kneel down and apologize to Tongning. At this moment, she simply hoped that Tongning would forget about this incident as soon as possible. She didn't want to be embarrassed in front of everyone. But, however, Feng Yu remembered it clearly. Reporter friend holding number 29. Do you still remember what you promised Tongning? Chapter 214. I. The other party stammered out the word I. His face was terrifyingly red. I know in the current entertainment industry, the cost of creating a rumor is very low. That's why you guys have the habit of spreading rumors so easily. But not every artist is within the scope of your ability to create rumors. As long as it involves an artist under Hairue, we will fight against you at all costs. As long as Hairue remains in the entertainment industry, as long as Hairue is still number one in everyone's hearts, we will definitely fight against the unhealthy culture in the entertainment industry. Today, regarding the incident involving Tongning and Han Shiner, Hairue would like to make the following statements. Firstly, Tongning and Han Shiner are not related by blood and have no moral obligation to save her. Tongning has already helped Han Shiner find a kidney and has maintained her bottom line. Secondly, during the period of Han Shiner's illness, Tongning did not receive a single phone call from Han Shiner asking for help. At the same time, she did not ask a third party to keep in contact with her. Tongning only found out about the truth after the incident. Any comments that Tongning has insulted Han Shiner are considered rumors. Thirdly, the incident with Han Shiner has caused great damage to Tongning's reputation. We have already obtained evidence of the mastermind. Hairue will soon send out a lawyer's letter to ensure that this type of behavior will be punished under the supervision of the law. Fourthly, Hairue has issued a serious warning to many media outlets and publications. We hope the media will remember their responsibilities and maintain their bottom line. They will not blindly follow the trend and work together to create a better culture in the entertainment industry. This is the attitude of the entire Hairue. Feng Yu's words were clean and concise. His words were full of warning, causing the media present to tremble in fear. They thought Hairue was joking, but Hairue had already brought out their most serious legal weapon. The reporters looked at each other. Deep down, they all knew they were being used. But what could they do? The reporters weren't having a good time either. No one bothered to investigate the truth. All they cared about was whether the incident would be explosive enough to make the public feel refreshed. All they could do was run on the front lines, but they couldn't retreat. So as soon as the truth was revealed, every single one of them looked at Tongning with guilt. What did Tongning do wrong? It was just that he was targeted, framed, slandered, and almost destroyed. Sorry. Tongning, we had no choice. I'm really sorry. We made a huge mistake this time. Luckily, Hairue set things right in time. In the future, we will definitely remember that we are reporters. Faced with these apologies that seemed to come from the bottom of their hearts, apart from mockery, Tongning couldn't think of anything else. When they want to smear you, they can blurt out any rumor. Once they were pressured, they would begin to feel regret and shame. Feng Yu watched as the media admitted defeat, and the reporters trembled in fear. He then turned to look at Tongning before changing the topic and joking. However, this incident has gotten out of hand. Apart from the media, there is another group of people that we have no choice but to pay attention to. After speaking, Feng Yu turned his body slightly to the side as the screen behind him displayed the details of Tongning's fans. On the screen, the fan was analyzing her journey, from being madly in love with Tongning, to humiliating her when the incident happened, to finally becoming an anti-fan. This was a terrifying change that she had experienced multiple times. Between the lines, there was only one word: retard. Every celebrity will more or less experience signs of turning from a fan to an anti-fan, and vice versa. But fans like you that have been circling back and forth like paper clips, I would like to ask you to stop following Tongning after this incident. It's not that you can't afford to love Tongning, it's that Tongning can't afford to love you. Since you've turned into an anti-fan, don't turn back around and slap yourself in the face. The media did not continue to pursue the matter, and the reporter from before was not asked to kneel. They understood that Hairue was giving them a way out, so they laughed along with Feng Yu's humor. Of course, the fans were just an exception, because Feng Yu was actually trying to lure out anti-fans. A moment later, a lawyer's letter from Hairue appeared on the screen. It contained the information of 10 anti-fans, including their real names. The media were in an uproar. They were shocked by the extent of Hairue's actions. From the media to the mastermind, from the fans to the heartless anti-fans. Hai Rui did not let a single one of them off and pursued them step by step. Hai Rui once said that the cost of creating a rumor is too low. So it's time for groups of people to humiliate others for fun. Since that's the case, Hai Rui has no choice but to show their determination to defend their rights. So it's about time these 10 people received their lawyer's letter. If you can tell the truth and if you have witnessed an unethical practice in the entertainment industry, you are welcome to report it. But those that use the internet to create sensationalism, slander others and cause harm to others, Hai Rui will not tolerate them. There are millions of anti-fans. But there will come a day when they will pay the price. If you continue to spread rumors, it will only push the adoption of a real name system online. When that time comes, you will have nowhere to hide. I'm looking forward to seeing how awesome you are. Fang Yu's words were extremely forceful, but it made those that had suffered from anti-fans for a long time feel extremely satisfied. Above all, this was the first time Hai Rui had shown such determination to deal with anti-fans. It meant, from today onwards, Hai Rui would protect their artists in every way possible. This information was revealed with the permission of the police when they reported it to the police. Anti-fans, Hai Rui awaits your challenge. These words were Hai Rui's declaration of war against the anti-fans. Of course, with the intervention of the police, the anti-fans that had previously threatened to do something to Tongning immediately disappeared without a trace. Great! Mo Ting stood in his office watching the live broadcast. He was extremely satisfied with Fang Yu's performance. Those that had bullied Tongning in the past, those that were currently bullying Tongning, and those that wanted to bully her in the future. Did they think they still had a chance? Absolutely impossible. From today onwards, Tongning will be a signed model of Hai Rui. From now on, all of her work will be handled by Hai Rui. I hope our friends in the media can be magnanimous and treat Tongning a little more gently. The media were stuck in the middle of Hai Rui today. It was like they had been slapped in the face and invited to watch someone else get slapped in the face. Hearing Fang Yu's words, they could only nod their heads, that's for sure. Tongning will definitely become an international supermodel. Chapter 215. This was the first time Tongning had participated in a press conference for Hai Rui. She suddenly understood why Mo Ting was able to dominate the entertainment industry for so many years without being shaken. Because Fang Yu's hosting was enough to explain everything. Apart from Hai Rui, there was no other agency with such professional PR capabilities and such a domineering way of handling a situation. After the press conference, Fang Yu smiled at Tongning, hinting that from now on, Hai Rui would protect her from all aspects. Tongning returned a smile. Her gratitude was evident on her face. Meanwhile, Long Jie and Lu Che were extremely excited as they listened to the press conference. Especially Long Jie. Every time something exciting happened, she would grab onto Lu Che's arm and pinch it. After the press conference was over, Lu Che directly showed his arm to Long Jie. If you continue to pinch it, my arm will be crippled. Boss's company is awesome, powerful, and professional. Lu Che knew there was no way he could stop Long Jie, so he let her be. However, his expression was one of confidence. Of course, you should take a look at whose company this is. How could any black-hearted agency compare? Like this, I finally don't have to worry about Tongning's future. Lu Che watched as Long Jie laughed and cried at the same time. He couldn't understand how women worked. She cried when she was unhappy, but she also cried when she was happy. I can finally relax. So, what are you planning to do? What else can I do? I'm already so old. It's time for me to start looking for someone to marry, Long Jie blurted out. But as soon as she saw Lu Che, she froze. She was so excited that she forgot herself. Lu Che did not say a word. He simply looked at Tongning on stage, but his eyelashes were trembling. Long Jie sneaked a glance at him. She couldn't understand what Lu Che was thinking. So her smile froze on her face. She wasn't sure if she should continue to hint at him. Lu Che didn't seem to like older women, right? Thinking of this, Long Jie's smile suddenly became a little forced. Afterwards, the press conference came to an end. However, just as Han Xiner was about to leave Hai Rui, Feng Yu approached her and smiled. After you recover and are interested in joining Hai Rui, you can give me a call. What can I do? Hai Rui's publicity department welcomes you. Feng Yu smiled politely. You have a lot of potential. Han Xiner glanced at Tongning and nodded her head solemnly. Since Tongning is here, of course I am willing to come. I simply hope you don't give me an empty promise. I'm curious. Why do you like to chase after Tongning? Because I also want to have a counterattack in life. Tongning has always been my only hope. I want to live like her. When it's time to fight, I will seize the opportunity, and when it's time to love, I will not hold back. Then you must first have a healthy body. Good luck, little friend. As Han Xiner left, Tongning gave her a tight hug. If I don't have the responsibility to donate my kidney to you, then you don't have the responsibility to clarify the truth for me either. I just want you to be happy, Ningjia. I will accompany you during your surgery. Tongning let go of her and gently stroked her hair, just like how Emoting always gave her strength. This time, Han Xiner smiled brightly as her cheeks flushed red. She nodded her head in seriousness. In that case, I will definitely make myself healthy and return to your side. Tongning's heart was moved by Han Xiner's righteousness and tolerance. In this world, we face countless choices every day. But there are always some people that, no matter what they experience, would never hurt others and would never blame anyone. So she deserved a better life. After the press conference, Feng Yu invited Tongning into his office and said, "The president has given instructions. Han Xiner must have hurt you a lot this time, so he is giving you a day off to recover. But the day after tomorrow, you will return to your post and start your busy schedule." "I don't need a day off," Tongning replied straightforwardly. After a short pause, she continued, "Actually, I really want to know, who exactly is my manager? Your manager is currently not in China. You will be flying to Italy the day after tomorrow. Your manager will be meeting you there," Feng Yu explained. "I understand. Tongning at Hai Rui, you can be yourself. Right now, I am being myself." After all, she had never been a noisy person. Feng Yu shrugged his shoulders and used his humorous body language to tell Tongning that although Hai Rui was strict, it was a loving family. Tongning responded with a smile. "I will cherish every day I have at Hai Rui." Hai Rui strikes back at anti-fans. Han Xiner's incident revealed. Hai Rui to Tongning's fans. "Can't love her, please stay away." Hai Rui slaps anti-fans. "Real name system will forever be your grave." In an instant, Hai Rui used a strong stance to reverse the damage that the public had done to Tongning. Like a strong gust of wind, all negative comments about Tongning were blown away. The anti-fans were afraid of being exposed, so they no longer dared to say anything online. As for Tongning's fans, they quietly withdrew from the circle of idols in shame, and temporarily distanced themselves from the controversy. On the same night, news of a famous film star being involved in a car accident was released in the film and television industry. As a result, the media's attention was immediately drawn to it. The attention online decreased, and the trending searches also disappeared. Seeing the search results, Long Jie let out a sigh of relief and said to Tongning, "You've finally come back to life." Tongning stood outside Hai Rui and looked up at the top floor. She knew the person that had given her a new lease on life was her husband, Emoting. August 19th had given her a new lease on life. And today he had given her a new career. "From now on, everything I have belongs to this man. I will live a better life for him." Hearing Tongning's words, Long Jie was both happy and a little disappointed. Who was she supposed to live a better life for? Tongning lowered her head and noticed Long Jie's disappointed expression. So she asked in a quiet voice, "Are you thinking of Lu Che?" Long Jie did not admit it, but she did not deny it either. "If you really like him, then tell him. Did you think he would understand your hints? It's easy to say it out loud, but I'm afraid it would be awkward as a friend," Long Jie replied straightforwardly. "I'm well aware that with my family background, Lu Che's family would never like a woman like me." Chapter 216. Tongning hated Long Jie's inferiority complex. It also revealed that a naturally optimistic person was actually more fragile. In front of others, she could laugh and joke around, but in the dead of night, it was easy for her to hide and soothe her own wounds. Let's go. Long Jie reminded Tang Ning. Tang Ning glanced at Long Jie before turning around and climbing into the van. Lu Che was a blockhead. Perhaps, in Lu Che's heart, the only reason he treated Long Jie a little better was because Long Jie treated him well. Right now, everyone in Beijing knows you are Lu Che's fiancé. You already have a lot more opportunities than others. Long Jie, don't waste them. Long Jie glared at Tang Ning as she covered her ears. Tang Ning's words were like a feather gently brushing against her heart, making it itch. She couldn't think about it, her heart was in a mess. That evening, without any warning, a light snowfall suddenly appeared in Beijing. Tang Ning stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the snowy scenery. Behind her, on the big screen, the news of Luo Hao being interviewed by the police was playing. Tang Ning turned around and took a quick glance. Especially when she saw Luo Hao leaving Chengtian in a sorry state. It was like all the grievances she had previously suffered had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Lan Shi followed behind as she sent Luo Hao off. However, at this point, Chengtian Entertainment was on the verge of collapse, so Lan Shi's face was similarly pale. Tang Ning glanced at the screen and turned off the television. She already knew what had happened to Lan Shi and Luo Hao. The once arrogant couple had now become the laughingstock of the industry, especially after being singled out by Hai Rui. It was like Chengtian had collapsed overnight. From now on, it was impossible for them to ever make a comeback. Not long after, Mo Ting returned home covered in snow. However, his palms were still warm. He removed his jacket and approached Tang Ning from behind, pulling her into his embrace. What are you thinking about? You look so focused. I'm thinking about the future. Tang Ning turned around and replied as she lay in Mo Ting's embrace. In 2 months, let's go public. Have you thought it through? Mo Ting asked as he hugged her. Yes, you are too good. I'm afraid you will be snatched away, so I need to tag you. Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply wrapped his arms around Tang Ning's waist and pulled her into his embrace. Afterwards, the couple took a few steps forward and landed on the sofa not too far away. Mo Ting then pressed his body against Tang Ning's as he kissed her. If this was really the case, then they had a lot of things to solve. After they were done fooling around, Tang Ning finally leaned against Mo Ting's chest and asked, Long Jie, do you think Lu Che will like of you? I'm not even Lu Che knows the answer himself. Tang Ning thought for a few seconds and realized Mo Ting's words made sense. After all, that man's EQ was indeed that low. Tang Ning of Long Jie of Tang Ning of Mo of Long Jie of Long Jie of Lu. Of Long of Mo of Jie Tang. He was Mo of Ling. Tang Ning gently nodded her head, indicating she knew how to cook. However, before Mo Ting could take a few steps, Tang Ning held him back. I heard my manager is in Italy. Who is she? You will find out when the time comes. Tang Ning did not ask any further. She grabbed her phone and walked over to the window to give Long Jie a phone call. Of course, she deliberately exaggerated the truth. Although Long Jie warned herself not to fall for Lu Che, hearing that he had a high fever of 39 degrees and no one was taking care of him, she immediately asked for his apartment address and rushed over anxiously. Along the way, she lost track of how many red lights she ran. Half an hour later, Long Jie arrived outside Lu Che's apartment. After pressing the doorbell a few times, Lu Che finally opened the door. He looked at Long Jie listlessly. Oh, it's you. Have you taken your medicine? How high is your fever? Among the medicine I bought last time, there are some that can treat a cold. Lu Che childishly returned to the sofa. Whenever he was sick, his mind was in a mess, so he couldn't hear what Long Jie was saying. As Long Jie sat down on the coffee table, Lu Che suddenly laughed. You are too tall and sturdy. Be careful of my coffee table. Long Jie ignored his teasing as she pulled out a thermometer from the medicine box on the table and placed it in Lu Che's mouth. After 3 minutes, she took it out and looked at it anxiously. It really is 39 degrees. We need to go to the hospital. I don't want to sit in the car, I feel dizzy. Carry me on your back. Long Jie. Lu Che was at least 185 centimeters tall. Although she was tall and sturdy, she wasn't tall enough to carry a grown man on her back. Otherwise, I won't go. Longjia was angry and amused at the same time. She suddenly felt Lu Che was quite cute like this. Perhaps, his fever was too high for him to realize how childish he was being. Afterwards, Longjia knelt down with her back facing him and said, "Come on up." Lu Che sat up and climbed onto Longjia's back without hesitation. After finding a comfortable position, he buried his head in Longjia's shoulder and fell asleep. Longjia only took a few steps before she found it hard to breathe. But thinking about the person on her back with such a serious fever, her heart ached. Although Lu Che was torturing her, she still felt a trace of bitterness and sweetness. Luckily, after 10 minutes of walking, there was a hospital. Longjia carried Lu Che in and placed him on a stretcher. She told the doctor to hurry and check on him before it turned into pneumonia. After being tormented in the hospital for 4 hours, it was not until late at night that Lu Che finally woke up a little. He opened his eyes and looked at Longjia, who was lying on the edge of the bed. Coincidentally, the nurse was doing her rounds. Seeing Lu Che awake, she smiled. "You two sure have a good relationship. Your sister carried you all the way to the hospital. It wasn't easy." Lu Che thought back to his unreasonable actions and suddenly felt a sense of guilt. Why did he bully Longjia for being fat? Perhaps because his hands were numb, Lu Che moved his arms a little. But because of this movement, Longjia forced her eyes open and asked, "You're awake? Are you feeling better?" "Much better." Lu Che felt a little awkward. Lu Che was a little embarrassed. "Well, I didn't mean for you to carry me here. I didn't expect you to be serious. But you are really strong." After hearing this, Longjia was so angry that she felt uncomfortable. She grabbed onto Lu Che's shirt and almost kissed him to shut his mouth. The couple's eyes grew wide. Perhaps, even Longjia didn't know why she suddenly couldn't control herself. In the end, the couple separated and Longjia said awkwardly, "You're too noisy." Lu Che was still in a daze. Longjia stood up and growled, "It seems you've recovered. Let's go, let's get out of the hospital immediately. I didn't drive, so carry me home." "I can't carry you." Chapter 217. Longjia glared at him and said in annoyance, "I was just teasing you." After speaking, Longjia helped him up from the bed and wrapped him in a thick jacket. After the couple arrived downstairs, Lu Che suddenly walked down the steps and crouched down. "Come on up." Although it was already early in the morning and there weren't many people on the streets, Longjia still looked around. Forget it. Although she said this, her body was honest as she climbed onto Lu Che's back. Lu Che couldn't handle the weight and almost fell to the ground. Longjia was so shocked that she quickly stood up. "Are you okay?" Lu Che couldn't help but laugh as he once again crouched down at the bottom of the steps. "Hurry, come on up." Longjia couldn't help but let out a laugh as she climbed onto Lu Che's back again. This time, Lu Che walked steadily, even though it still didn't look like it was easy. "You can put me down at the front, I'll take a taxi home," Longjia said as she pointed to a street lamp. "Why would you want to go home? Stay at my place." Lu Che carried Longjia across the street. "Isn't that a little inconvenient?" Longjia said, but she was actually laughing on the inside. Although opportunities like this didn't come by often, at this moment, being on this man's back made her heart feel warm and at ease. At the same time, she also felt nostalgic and reluctant to leave. "Hey! This hospital is only 3 minutes away from my house. How did you manage to carry me for over 10 minutes? Lu Che changed the topic. Of course, when it came to accommodation, he would make his own decisions. "I am, after all, a woman." Before the word woman could leave her mouth, Longjia suddenly reminded, "Look at the road, look at the road." Lu Che turned his head once and ended up knocking into a lamppost. Longjia fell backwards onto the snow with Lu Che lying between her legs. Lu Che was stunned for a moment. He realized their position was quite embarrassing, so he immediately stood up and pulled Longjia up. Longjia immediately covered her burning hot face, thinking to herself, if only the road was a little longer. Lu Che held onto Longjia's hand without turning back. Long Jia enjoyed the feeling of being held onto by the person she liked as her thoughts ran wild the entire way. She knew, although she was an insignificant person had their own highlights. If it was Tongning and Boss, there would definitely be a crowd of onlookers. Not long after, the couple arrived at Lu Che's apartment. As there was only one bedroom, Lu Che gave the bed to Long Jia. However, Long Jia said, "Since we're both too embarrassed to sleep on the bed, let's both sleep on the sofa. You can take that one and I'll take this one." Lu Che thought about it and felt it made sense. So after taking the medicine, he collapsed and fell into a deep sleep. It was like he had no idea that there was a woman in front of him. Long Jia sat up and watched as Lu Che rested peacefully. She felt it was a shame to waste such a beautiful night. But, was she really brave enough to say that she liked Lu Che? In a daze, Long Jia also fell to the ground. However, her sleeping position wasn't very good. In the darkness, a tall figure helplessly walked to her side, bent down and carefully tucked her in. However, Long Jia was in a deep sleep, so she had no idea someone had covered her with a blanket. The next morning, Tongning was packing her luggage at home when she received a phone call from Fangyu. He asked her to attend a private gathering to get to know some of Hai Rui's most popular artists. "I've already spoken to the president about this matter, and he has agreed." Tongning originally didn't like crowds, but since Fangyu had asked and it was Mo Ting's idea, Tongning couldn't find a reason to reject. So she nodded her head and agreed. She needed to integrate into this big family and make a few more friends. So 6 p.m. that night, she and Long Jia appeared at a secretive high-class club. To make sure she didn't feel awkward, Fangyu waited for her at the entrance and led her into the high-class reception. Inside the luxurious hall, pleasant classical music echoed through the air. Under the gorgeous chandeliers, a famous singer was playing the piano. Tongning took a closer look and noticed most of the people attending the reception were currently on television. They were either famous film and television stars or popular singers. The only person accompanying her was the international supermodel, Hu Jingjing. She was wearing a long silver dress as she sat elegantly drinking champagne. Afterwards, Fangyu led Tongning over to the man playing the piano. He smiled and said, "Fengge, let me introduce you. This is Tongning." Although Tongning rarely sang, she was well aware of the status the man in front of her had in the pop music industry. 10 years ago, his name had already spread far and wide, and he had created countless legends on the charts. 10 years later, he was still far behind the younger generation. He was a famous evergreen in the music industry. Tongning was not shy at all. As the man sized her up, she politely greeted, "Nice to meet you, Fengge. Okay, let's have more gatherings from now on. If you like to sing, I can teach you." "Thank you, Fengge. Tongning has arrived." Everyone present immediately approached with a glass of wine in their hands and greeted Tongning. Fangyu patiently introduced himself until Tongning was able to blend in. In the end, Tongning sat down beside Hu Jingjing. In reality, they had already compared their abilities a long time ago. But Hu Jingjing had been famous for a long time and her stage presence was unique, so she had her own advantages. She turned sideways and smiled at Tongning. "You don't like events like this, do you?" "Aha, I'm not used to it yet." "You'll get used to it after a few more times. Hai Rui is a place that gathers the best people in the industry," Hu Jingjing said as she drank. In the end, she was a little tipsy, so she asked, "Who is your manager?" "What's your manager?" I don't know yet," Tongning replied honestly. "I heard you are flying to Italy the day after tomorrow for the sake of a watch endorsement. But I heard Star King is also fighting for it," Hu Jingjing explained. "I know you were previously blacklisted by Star King. But since you've joined Hai Rui, there will be a lot of battles between you and Star King. You need to be careful." Tongning nodded her head and looked at Hu Jingjing in seriousness. Fighting for resources is inevitable, but Hai Rui has never lost before. I hope you can continue to win. Of course, this will depend on whether your manager has the ability to do so. Tongning knew the higher up she went, the crueler it was. But apart from nodding her head, she didn't know what else to say. After all, she didn't even know who her manager was yet. The two chatted for a while before Fang Yu turned to the crowd and said mysteriously, "Do you guys know that the president will be attending tonight?" Chapter 218. As soon as everyone heard this, their faces lit up with excitement. Some of the artists even started clapping and whistling. Although they worked in the same agency, because Mo Ting had his own private elevator, the artists didn't have many chances to actually see him, let alone at a private event. Mo Ting was like a legend in their hearts, more dazzling than any singer or movie star. Hua Jingjing subconsciously scanned Tongning from head to toe. She noticed, even a popular singer like Feng Gu couldn't help but reveal a look of excitement upon hearing that Mo Ting was coming. Tongning was the only exception. Although she was known to be quiet, the expression on her face made Hua Jingjing lower her head and smile. "You seem to be quite close to President Mo?" "Sort of." Tongning nodded in acknowledgement. Within the industry, there aren't many people that are close to President Mo. His lifestyle doesn't seem like one from the entertainment industry, Hua Jingjing said with a deeper meaning. She then lowered her head and gently took a sip from the wine glass in her hand. Tongning let out a gentle laugh. She didn't know why, but she couldn't put up her guard around Hua Jingjing. It was like Hua Jingjing had an aura that was very similar to hers. It made her feel a sense of familiarity. Roughly 10 minutes later, a commotion broke out in the hall. Tongning spotted Mo Ting amongst the crowd of artists. He was tall, strong and brimming with energy. He was still wearing the same black lapel suit he wore before leaving the house. However, at this moment, Tongning wasn't sure if it was because she had been drinking, but all she could think about was Mo Ting's strong physique without any clothes on. So she blushed as she stared at Mo Ting amongst the crowd. Her eyes burned with passion. It was as if she wanted to pierce a hole through his body. Mo Ting greeted each of the artists present one by one before looking for Tongning. As his gaze met with her fiery gaze, Mo Ting held back his laughter and held back the urge to hug her. It was as if he was hinting for her to drink less. Tongning let out a gentle laugh as she looked down at her wine glass and gently nodded her head. "Tongning, come over here." Feng Yu noticed Tongning had not moved, so he beckoned her over. Tongning held onto her wine glass and obediently walked over to Feng Yu's side. She then looked at Mo Ting. "Let me propose a toast to President Mo." Tongning did not hold back as she asked straightforwardly, "I wonder if I would have the honor?" Mo Ting received the wine glass from the waiter and gently clinked glasses with Tongning. Their actions were in sync, and the way they drank was the same. If they hadn't known each other for a long time, it was impossible for them to have such chemistry. Hua Jingjing seemed to have understood something and suddenly chuckled. It was hard to find anyone present who didn't suspect their tacit actions. To be able to make it to the top of the industry, one's EQ and IQ were not too low. If he still couldn't understand, then they didn't deserve to be the cream of the crop. From this, Feng Yu understood. If Mo Ting had previously said he wanted to be Tongning's manager, he was still doubtful. But now Mo Ting, who never attended private gatherings, appeared in front of everyone because of Tongning. Didn't this mean something? Of course, the boss knew that everyone would notice something was off, but he didn't hide it. He was secretly telling everyone to take care of his people. Everyone had a tacit understanding. Actually, they weren't surprised at all, even though some of them were younger than Tongning, but since she had joined Hai Rui, she was their junior. So, of course, they had to take good care of her. After the toast, Mo Ting and a few other popular film stars began to discuss the script. Mo Ting had a good eye for talent. As long as he had his eyes on a film, it would definitely do well in the box office and would never fail. So now that the opportunity had arrived, everyone had to take advantage of it. Tongning returned to her seat beside Hua Jingjing. Listening to the soothing music, her tense nerves slowly relaxed. "Don't go public," Hua Jingjing suddenly said from beside her. "Huh? Don't go public with your relationship with President Mo," Hua Jingjing suggested in seriousness. "Otherwise, you will no longer have a private life to speak of. The reporters will have their eyes on you at all times. In fact, they may even do it a few times a week." Tongning was a little surprised, but she quickly smiled. "Let me tell you a story." Hua Jingjing found a comfortable spot and slowly began. 10 years ago, There was a model that came from a humble background. But she fell in love with a famous director. They fearlessly walked side by side for many years. Just as the female model became a supermodel, they went public with their relationship. In the end, they moved in together and got married. But not long after, the media revealed that the director was impotent. Because of these 3 words, the director broke down. From then on, he couldn't recover. As for this female model, because her husband's dignity was trampled on and she couldn't prove his innocence, the media claimed that she was a test tube baby. In the end, she suffered a miscarriage and committed suicide. That woman was my sister, Hua Yingying. The media must be scary. After hearing this, Tongning's heart was filled with emotions. Fame had always been a double-edged sword. Don't worry, since President Mo dared to let us know. He obviously has a plan. Actually, he wants you to be mentally prepared. If your relationship goes public, your life will definitely be turned upside down. I know. I've always known. Tongning nodded her head in seriousness. But the way she looked at Mo Ting was filled with trust and determination. We will help you because Hai Rui has given us a lot of warmth. At that time, Tongning didn't really understand who Hu Jingjing was referring to. She simply felt that if there was a place in the entertainment industry that was pure, then Hai Rui had achieved it. Mo Ting seemed to have finished speaking as he suddenly placed his gaze on Tongning. His gentle gaze made Tongning feel like she was bathing in the moonlight. Tongning had a little too much to drink. As she spoke to Hu Jingjing, she continuously downed a few more glasses. By the time Mo Ting looked at her for the 5th or 6th time, she was already lying unconscious on the table. Seeing this, Mo Ting stood up from the crowd, walked over to Tongning and placed his arm around her shoulder. Feeling the familiar warmth, Tongning immediately sat up, wrapped her arms around Mo Ting's waist and rubbed her head against his stomach. This scene was witnessed by everyone. Although their eyes were wide open, they were no longer surprised. From now on, thanks to Tongning, he would be able to interact with Boss more often. It seemed he needed to treat her better. Mo Ting had no choice but to carry Tongning in his arms. At this moment, he was no longer the boss that stood above everyone. He was simply the husband of a drunkard. Chapter 219. This is the first time I felt Boss is like an ordinary person. President Fong, did you invite the 2 of them to show off their affection today? I suddenly remembered something, the LM jewelry commercial. President Mo is the Backview Dream Man, right? You've only just realized. In that case, you must have seen Feng Kai's interview with Tongning. Everyone was immersed in their memories as they suddenly remembered Tongning telling the host that she was already married. Married to the most powerful man in the industry. At first, everyone thought she was joking. But who would have thought, everything she said was the truth. However, even though they knew it was the truth, they couldn't deny Tongning's hard work. Even after all this time, Mo Ting still hadn't stepped in to resolve the issue. It was clear to see, she had truly relied on her own abilities. As for how professional she was, everyone present had personally witnessed it. Above all, everyone had signed a confidentiality agreement with Hai Rui. Even if they knew the inside story of the industry, they couldn't reveal it to the public. If it concerned themselves, Fong Yu would naturally step in to resolve it for them. But if it concerned someone else, they better keep their mouth shut because it had nothing to do with them. After Mo Ting escorted Tongning out of the club, they headed straight home and placed her on the bed. Tongning suddenly opened her sleepy eyes and sat up, hooking her arms around Mo Ting's neck. It's been a long time since I've been this happy. Mo Ting understood what she was referring to. Along the way, she had already experienced too much scheming. It had been a long time since Tongning had experienced the feeling of having friends. There was no suspicion or scheming, there was only relaxation and trust. So she allowed herself to get drunk. I should have dragged you over to Hai Rui a long time ago. Tongning shook her head as she buried her head in Mo Ting's neck. Without the experience from before, I wouldn't have been able to get the equality I have today. I believe God has trained me because he has left the best for me to come. Like you. Mo Ting gently stroked Tongning's cheek and said gently, you need to fly to Italy tomorrow. It's time for you to get some rest. Let me hug you a little longer. I won't be able to see you for a few more days. Ting did not say a word as he allowed her to hug him. The couple continued to hug each other tightly. After quite some time, Tongning finally said in a choked-up voice, I don't have a home, so you give me one. I don't have a career, so you support my career. I don't have friends, so you find me a bunch of friends. How can you treat me so well? Ting did not respond. He knew on the surface, Tongning appeared strong and seemed like she didn't need anything, but in reality, her sense of security was just a hard shell. Because you need. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm the one who loves you the most in the world. There won't be another one like me in the future. She bit Ting forcefully, and gently kissed the bite mark she had left on his cheek. Can I sleep now? Okay. Tongning nodded her head and collapsed. Do you want to take a shower first? My stomach hurts. I want to wash it tomorrow. Ting did not say anything. He was 100% lenient towards drunkards. Some people might not understand how someone could put in so much effort without ever feeling tired. In reality, the reasoning was simple. It was because you truly loved her and couldn't bear to see anything bad happen to her. If she was unhappy, angry, sad or hurt, it was all your fault. This was what it meant to put in 100% effort. The next morning, Wuxia and Tongning waited at the airport for their flight. After the incident with Han Xiner, the media's attitude towards Tongning was a lot gentler and more polite. Even when they bumped into each other at the airport, they didn't speak to her as casually as before. After all, Hai Rui's PR wasn't like Qing Tian's, where they were just there for show. After dealing with the reporters, Tongning sat in the departure lounge holding her head in discomfort. Seeing this, Wuxia immediately handed her some medicine and warm water. Who told you to drink so much last night? You've made boss worry. However, you're going to have a hangover. Did you know you're finally back to how you used to be? What? You're more human. Wuxia sighed. She then sat down beside her and stretched out her legs as she explained. From the moment Han Yufan betrayed you, you've been facing the outside world with a cold attitude. Apart from boss, you've been guarding against everyone and you've been trying to control everything in your own hands. Although I like that side of Tongning as a friend, I feel like you've been holding on too much. Isn't it better like this? Tongning couldn't help but admit, this was all because of the rise in status that gave her confidence. Plus, joining Hai Rui gave her a sense of security. Have you still not been able to contact your manager? Feng Yu told me that the manager will be meeting with us at Excalibur Q's interview venue tomorrow. Wuxia replied casually. He should be in Italy on a business trip. Tongning leaned against Wuxia's shoulder and was about to close her eyes to get some rest when a commotion suddenly came from the departure lounge. Wuxia sat up and glanced at the commotion before saying to Tongning, That's Star King's model Qin Yu. Hearing the word Star King, Tongning's eyes suddenly opened and she sat up straight. As she watched the model called Qin Yu enter the VIP lounge, their eyes met for a moment before quickly looking away. Qin Yu didn't travel like Tongning did. Apart from bodyguards, assistants, manager and a makeup artist, she was accompanied by 7 to 8 other people. As soon as the staff saw Tongning's simple appearance, they didn't think highly of her status in Hai Rui. A model that had previously been blacklisted by Star King, now that she was at an enemy agency, did she think she could make a name for herself? It seems Star King's endorsement deal with Excalibur Q is a must. It's still too early to be talking about this. Wuxia watched as Tongning spoke calmly. She liked how confident she was when it came to her profession. Tongning remembered Hu Jingjing's words. Whenever Hai Rui and Star King competed for resources, they had never lost. So when it came to her, there was no reason to let Star King win. Not to mention, Star King had blacklisted her for many years. Qin Yu's people originally wanted to bully Tongning by occupying the seat next to her. But Tongning's bodyguards immediately entered the lounge and stood behind Tongning. Not one more, not one less, there were 4 top-notch American bodyguards. Tongning was low-key, but it didn't mean she was easy to provoke. Qin Yu and her assistant glanced at Tongning and did not dare to provoke her any further. All they could do was step back and grit their teeth. Star King's overall power was, of course, no match for Hai Rui. But they were a professional agency that trained their models. Once upon a time, Star King was also Tongning's dream. But now, she thought defeating Imperial Star was more meaningful than joining Imperial Star. Chapter 220. At the same time, Emoting set off for Milan. However, just as he was about to leave Hai Rui, he was held back by Lu Che. President, there is a problem with our collaboration with Hong Xian Film and Television. The other party's CEO is still online. As he spoke, Lu Che handed over his phone. This was a project worth a few $100 million. Emoting lifted his wrist to look at the time, and accepted the phone from Lu Che. But this wasn't as simple as a phone call. Hai Rui had invested in the project, so now that there was a problem with the production, both parties needed to meet in person to discuss it. Emoting pondered for a moment before turning around to return to Hai Rui. As he walked back, he said to Lu Che, "Get Fong Yu to immediately fly to Milan and help Tongning secure the endorsement deal for Excalibur Q." But Excalibur Q is one of the top 10 luxury brands in the world. Letting Fong Yu handle it is not enough for the madam. Lu Che followed behind Emoting worriedly. This was one of the problems Tongning faced after joining Hai Rui. If Emoting wanted to stay by Tongning's side at all times, he would need to make a huge sacrifice. But Tongning was already under his flag. No matter who he handed her over to, he couldn't be at ease. "If he can't complete it, tell him to call me." After hearing these instructions, Lu Che immediately rushed downstairs and relayed Emoting's instructions to Fong Yu. Fong Yu immediately made time to fly to Italy an hour after Tongning. After an 11-hour flight, Tongning arrived in Milan at 1 p.m. Long Jie dragged a large suitcase and followed behind Tongning. The warm rays of the sun shone down on them, making them feel especially refreshed. Afterwards, they checked into the hotel arranged by the agency. Long Jie immediately gave Lu Che a phone call asking about his upcoming work arrangements and any updates on her manager. But as Lu Che picked up the phone, he noticed Emoting was in the middle of a meeting with Hong Xian's CEO. He immediately comforted Long Jie. "The work arrangements have already been sent to the madam's email. As for the manager, she will be arriving shortly. I'm in a meeting now, so I won't say much." Long Jie put down her phone and blinked a few times. She suddenly felt a little strange. The model had already started work, yet she didn't even know who her manager was. How could they cooperate like this? Tongning sat uncomfortably on the edge of the bed. Seeing Long Jie's furrowed brows, she asked naturally, "What's wrong? Who is this agent? Why are you acting so mysterious?" Tongning endured the discomfort in her stomach as she leaned against the headboard to read up on Excalibur Q. Seeing her pale face, Long Jie couldn't help but place her hands on her hips worriedly. "Can you work like this?" "I'm fine," Tongning said as she held onto her burning stomach. "In the future, let boss keep an eye on you. If you can't drink, don't drink. Did boss give you any hangover soup?" "Yes, I drank it as soon as I woke up this morning." Tongning nodded. "Tongning, this is your first event since joining Hai Rui. Plus, you will be competing with Star King. Although I don't want to put pressure on you, I'm sure you know how important this endorsement is to you." "I know." Tongning nodded gently. "Then you rest for a while. I'll look at the work arrangements first." Long Jie pulled out her laptop and watched over Tongning. She didn't even have time to get over her jet lag as she turned on her laptop and started working. The interview was scheduled for 3 p.m. the next day. Afterwards, Long Jie looked through the contents of the interview and turned her head to look at Tongning's sleeping face. Long Jie was extremely worried. If Emoting were to find out, his heart would be broken. Tongning also knew her body wasn't doing well. From now on, she needed to abstain from alcohol. She couldn't make herself suffer. An hour later, Fong Yu arrived at the hotel arranged by the agency and found Tongning's room. As soon as Long Jie saw Fong Yu, she thought he was Tongning's manager. She had a good impression of him. If that was the case, then why did Lu Che keep her in suspense? Fong Yu had only taken over halfway through the process. He understood how big of a challenge Tongning was facing this time. Excalibur Q was a global luxury brand. How could it be easy to secure an endorsement? Feng Yu turned his head to look at Tongning lying in bed. But he watched as her body suddenly twitched and she began to vomit. Feng Yu and Long Jie were so shocked that their expressions changed. They immediately rushed Tongning to the hospital in Milan. After being treated by the doctor, her condition finally stabilized. She hasn't recovered from the alcohol and has been on such a long journey. Of course her stomach isn't feeling well. Then, when will she recover? Long Jie asked the doctor in English. She will need to rest in bed for 2 days. Resting in bed meant she wouldn't be able to attend the interview tomorrow. Long Jie turned her head and looked at Feng Yu. All of a sudden, she didn't know what to do. Feng Yu was also silent, but he still pulled out his phone and called Mo Ting to report on the day's events. Tongning was afraid Mo Ting would be worried, so she told Feng Yu not to tell him she was hospitalized. Feng Yu thought about it for a moment, but in the end he did not listen to Tongning and told Mo Ting about the situation. I shouldn't have rushed her to shoot commercials and accept endorsements. How about we give up on the contract with Excalibur Q? Feng Yu suggested. Opportunities could come again, but Hai Rui would never joke around with an artist's health, especially when this person was someone Mo Ting cared about. But contrary to Feng Yu's expectations, Mo Ting simply laughed. If she was willing to give up, then she wouldn't be Tongning. What does the president want? Tomorrow, help her with the interview. But make sure nothing happens to her body. If anything happens that you can't handle, immediately give me a phone call. Feng Yu held onto his phone and suddenly wanted to do a test. So he covered the phone and said to Tongning, President Mo wants you to give up on the endorsement. I have no reason to give up. Feng Yu's lips curved upwards. Indeed, the person that understood Tongning the most was Mo Ting. So he handed the phone to Tongning and gestured for her to speak to Mo Ting on her own. The two were separated by mountains and rivers. Tongning held onto the phone, but she was too afraid to speak in a hoarse voice. Don't force yourself. As soon as you feel any discomfort, immediately let Feng Yu know. Okay, Tongning replied with a simple word. Without you by my side, I'm really worried. Mo Ting felt a little regretful. Why did he focus on his work and not choose Tongning? If he had known he would be so worried, he would have moved the $100 million investment to the back of the contract. I'm really fine now. In that case, you can't drink from now on. Okay, I won't drink anymore. Tongning nodded her head. As Feng Yu listened to the conversation between the two, he couldn't believe that the normally stern CEO could be so gentle when he fell in love. If Tongning was to find out that her manager was actually Mo Ting, he simply didn't know how long this couple could be happy for. He didn't mean to curse her, he simply. Chapter 221. After seeing through the industry and seeing all kinds of love, even the most loving relationship could end in tragedy. This was because he didn't understand what kind of woman Tongning was. To outsiders, her dignity was her bottom line. It was everything to her. But when it came to love, Tongning's thinking was not traditional. Even if she ended up arguing with Mo Ting for some reason, she would never give up on such a good man. Like this, Tongning's first day in Milan ended with her illness. Worth mentioning, as Long Jie helped Tongning back to the hotel, they bumped into Qingyu in the lift. Qingyu was wearing a white fur coat and fashionable dark red sunglasses. She glanced at the weak Tongning before turning her head and smiling at her assistant. Her assistant understood what she meant and couldn't help but let out a laugh. You haven't even stepped onto the battlefield and you've already collapsed. Is it because you're afraid? At this moment, Tongning didn't even have the energy to look at the woman as she lay quietly in Long Jie's arms. Long Jie didn't stupidly retaliate like she usually did. She simply stared at the woman like she was watching a joke until her eyes burned with fire. Qingyu wasn't an extremely beautiful woman, but she had a unique appearance. Especially the mole on top of her apple-shaped chest that always appeared on the runway. It was unforgettable. Tongning didn't doubt Qingyu's abilities. The fact that she was able to enter Star King was proof that she had the professionalism to be proud of. So, she didn't think there was anything wrong with someone being arrogant. Of course, Feng Yu didn't say anything because not only was Qingyu capable, she also had a background. If Qin Yu and Tang Ning were to compete for the Excalibur Q endorsement, Tang Ning would most likely be the one to lose. Although she was already married to Mo Ting, Fang Yu believed that Tang Ning didn't like to brag about their relationship to others. It didn't take long before Qin Yu stepped out of the lift. She walked with her unique style and pride. Long Jie glared at the two as they left. She was a little unconvinced. So what if she's from Star King? She must be mocking you for being blacklisted by Star King. Her momentum is indeed strong, Fang Yu replied straightforwardly. Last season, she was ranked 7th on the Asian model rankings. At least for now, she has the right to look down on us. Long Jie's expression did not look too good. She did not say a word. She felt Fang Yu wasn't as cute as Lu Che at this moment. Of course, Tang Ning comforted her. Fang Yu is right. Star King has so many experts and every single one of them is the real deal. There's nothing to be jealous about. But I also have high hopes for you. Fang Yu smiled at Tang Ning. You have nothing to lose. All you lack is an opportunity. I've never felt that I'm bad. Tang Ning was confident in herself. After all, she is the king's woman. Fang Yu muttered in a low voice. However, it was Tang Ning's words that gave Fang Yu some confidence. Therefore, whether or not he would be successful in tomorrow's interview, he would have to try to find out. After returning to her room, Tang Ning immediately closed her eyes to rest. Luckily, she was able to adjust her mental state quickly, so her body also recovered quickly. The next afternoon, 3 p.m. was Excalibur Q's official audition time. As a model from the Asian group, Tang Ning naturally had to perform on the same stage as Qin Yu. However, there was only one chance and there was only one quota. Would Qin Yu, who had obvious facial features, be chosen, or Tang Ning, who had a domineering aura, be chosen? This was a difficult decision for the representative of Excalibur Q. From a comprehensive point of view, Tang Ning won in terms of professionalism. But in other areas she was still lacking compared to Qin Yu. So the representative of Excalibur Q chose Qin Yu as a backup. And because Qin Yu was given the opportunity, Excalibur Q notified her assistant. When the assistant found out Qin Yu had been chosen, she looked at Tang Ning with a slightly victorious expression. Sensing the situation wasn't right, Fang Yu immediately gave Mo Ting a phone call. President Mo, the endorsement might be snatched away. Hearing this, Mo Ting's heart ached as he thought about how Tang Ning had fought for it even though she was sick. Although he was worried about Tang Ning's health, he still said to Fang Yu, I will speak to the other party. Fang Yu naturally did not doubt Mo Ting's ability. He simply wanted to know how Mo Ting would convince the other party. When would he get to witness Mo Ting's glory as a manager? Making phone calls like this wasn't satisfying at all. Afterwards, Fang Yu hung up the phone and returned to Tang Ning's side. At this time, the representative of Excalibur Q announced that the final result would be announced over the phone. The officials were still in dispute over the candidate. Qin Yu's manager's expression changed. Just a moment ago, the representative from Excalibur Q clearly told her that Qin Yu's endorsement was in the bag. How did it suddenly become a dispute? What did Tang Ning do to Excalibur Q? In reality, this was all because of a phone call from Mo Ting. Hello Mr. Statham, I am Tang Ning's manager from Hai Rue Entertainment. My surname is Mo regarding Excalibur Q's spokesperson. I wonder if your agency has considered using Star King's Qin Yu? This. The representative froze. He didn't expect Mo Ting to be so direct. It's not that Hai Rue doesn't have top models, but do you know why they chose Tang Ning? The representative was speechless, but he felt the people at Hai Rue were quite interesting. I won't deny that Qin Yu is also an amazing model, but please compare the two's works. That way you will know what you are looking for. Mo Ting did not say too much. In fact, he was extremely concise. But he managed to pique the other party's interest and curiosity. So, after hanging up the phone, Statham immediately asked for the announcement to be delayed. He then asked someone to organize the two's works. In the end, Statham discovered that Tang Ning was indeed an interesting model. Qin Yu's path was nothing more than to participate in an official competition and achieve her current status through Star King. Although her status wasn't low, when placed amongst a group of people, it wasn't very attractive. Replicas like her were everywhere. But Tongning was different. She had a story. Excalibur Q was a product that had been passed down for hundreds of years. After so many years of hardship, it had accumulated a deep foundation. Plus, every time it went through a disaster, it was able to come back from the dead like Tongning. So Tongning's rich plot twists were even more appreciated by him. Oriental Trend, TQLM. Just from these few pieces of data, they were all miracles created by Tongning. Was this the attitude a spokesperson should have? But Qingyu's background made them a little hesitant. Chapter 222. The person in charge of Excalibur Q couldn't make a decision in a short period of time. In the end, he decided to let the entire selection team vote. In reality, he was biased towards Tongning. But Excalibur Q wasn't decided by him alone. He needed to see supporters in order to convince the higher-ups to use Tongning, who wasn't as famous as Qinyu. The selection team began to evaluate the two artists' works. In the end, Qinyu was still in the lead. In the end, the selection team began to vote. There were a total of 7 people. 4 voted for Qinyu and 3 voted for Tongning. After seeing the results, Stenson furrowed his brows. The more people voted for Qinyu, the more he felt conflicted about the result. It was like he could see the helplessness and oppression that Excalibur Q felt when faced with malicious competition. In the end, Stenson put down the results and looked at the members of the selection team in a serious manner. I will only say one last thing. If after hearing this you still haven't changed your opinion, then we will go according to the results. Sir, please speak. Tongning is walking the same path as Excalibur Q. No one understands better than her what it means to experience the ups and downs, and what it means to be passed down through history. I hope Excalibur Q's endorsement is one that people can see the story and content behind, not just show off their popularity and pride. After speaking, Stenson looked at the crowd and said, "We will now proceed to the second round of voting." The competition was intense and the atmosphere was tense. After all, Excalibur Q had always been cautious when choosing their spokesperson. 10 minutes later, the second round of voting came to an end. The assistant announced the results. Tongning received 7 votes, while Qinyu received no votes. In reality, the others also had their eyes on Tongning. But because of their pride, they didn't say anything. But as soon as Stenson expressed his stance, everyone understood his intentions and immediately chose the person they liked. It was for no other reason than the fact that they had worked at Excalibur Q for so many years. Apart from fame and money, they also had feelings. Over the years, they had fought against their competitors and witnessed Excalibur Q's growth and maturity. Of course, they understood how suitable Tongning was for the role of Excalibur Q's spokesperson. So the latest results were out. Tongning won. Stenson immediately instructed his assistant to contact Tongning and tell her to prepare to sign the contract at Excalibur Q the next day. But the assistant confused Tongning and Qinyu's contact details and called Qinyu's manager. Qinyu's manager thought Qinyu had finally become the spokesperson. She excitedly hugged her and spun around the room. Finally. We've won against Hai Rui. Qinyu, you've won against Tongning. It was normal for foreigners to make a mistake in their contact details. After all, foreigners may be able to remember a person's appearance, but it didn't match their identity. All in all, the assistant remembered the mole on Qinyu's apple. So, she was certain she was the person Stenson was looking for. Fang Yu waited patiently for Tongning's phone call. But he knew the longer they waited, the smaller their chances would be. In the end, he had no choice but to say, "You've already tried your best. If you still can't change the outcome, then we will return home." Tongning stand by of her of time of time. Actually, you should understand, although JK established your foundation as an international supermodel, you still haven't been able to present any big data like rankings. So it's not strange that you lost to Qinyu. Don't take it to heart. Is there nothing else I can do? Tongning lifted her head and asked Fang Yu. You have already displayed your most professional attitude and tried your best. However, the more international the competition is, the more seniority is important. I still want to speak to Excalibur Q. Tongning pleaded, unwilling to admit defeat. Fang Yu glanced at Tongning and realized she had a spirit that refused to admit defeat. Even though he was so direct and decisive with his words, she still held on to her beliefs. Okay, I'll help you contact them. Fang Yu nodded in seriousness. Afterwards, Fang Yu pulled out some documents and made one last attempt. Although it took almost an hour, Fang Yu finally won the chance to speak to Stenson. He then handed the phone to Tongning. Take care of yourself. Tongning nodded her head in seriousness and received the phone from Fang Yu. Hello, Mr. Stenson, I am Tongning. Hello, Miss Tang. I'm sorry to disturb your rest so late at night. But regarding Excalibur Q's spokesperson, can you hear me out for one last time? I really want to fight for this opportunity. Stenson froze for a moment. She was already the spokesperson. Why did she still want to fight for this opportunity? Stenson guessed there must have been a problem with communication. However, he did not explain. He also wanted to know what Tongning thought about Excalibur. Please speak. Excalibur Q's philosophy has allowed me to see a lot of power. It has made me feel that my path is very similar to Excalibur Q's. If I can't be the spokesperson, I will feel very regretful. The other party smiled. In reality, he felt the same way. If they didn't use a suitable model like Tongning, and instead chose to use a template, they would also feel regretful. So, Stenson put down the porcelain cup in his hands and smiled at Tongning. Miss Tang, although I don't know what went wrong, according to the voting results from this afternoon, Excalibur Q's spokesperson has been confirmed to be you. I will contact my assistant to confirm again. But since you've already called me, let me tell you to come to Excalibur Q tomorrow at 9 a.m. to sign your contract. After hearing this, Tongning froze for a moment. But you really need to thank your manager. Although he only said a few simple words, he showed us what we should focus on the most: quality. I hope we can work well together in the future. Let's work well together. Afterwards, Tongning put away her phone and handed it back to Fang Yu. However, as soon as Fang Yu heard the words "let's work well together," he understood Tongning had succeeded. Long Jie also jumped up in excitement. However, Tongning glared at Fang Yu and asked, Stenson said it was because my manager reminded him. So, was that person you? Fang Yu shrugged his shoulders. Of course not. If I had the ability, would I be in such a terrible situation like you? This only proves that your manager is truly amazing. Who exactly is he? At the moment he still has work to do, so he asked me to come over and help out. However, during your interview this afternoon, I gave him a phone call and told him I couldn't handle it, so he contacted him, Fang Yu slowly explained. As expected, there's nothing he can't do. Chapter 223. Being able to successfully secure Excalibur Q made Tongning feel happy from the bottom of her heart. The conversation she had with Stenson was not for the sake of securing the endorsement, but because she truly liked the development of Excalibur Q. Sometimes endorsements depended on fate. Tongning pulled out her phone and wanted to give Emoting a phone call. However, there was a 7-hour time difference between Italy and Beijing. At this time, Emoting should be resting. Tongning thought for a moment and decided to send Emoting a message. I've secured the endorsement. Tongning never expected Emoting to reply. Yet Emoting actually gave her a phone call. Tongning was overjoyed, but her words contained a sense of blame. When I'm not by your side, you work until midnight without resting? Because I know you will definitely succeed. I've been waiting for your phone call. Emoting replied as he sat up and leaned against the headboard. Are you sure you're not working? Emoting had no choice but to video call her. Are you relieved? Ting. I'm very happy that I secured the endorsement. I know you will be very happy, Emoting said with a hidden meaning. He knew Tongning well enough to know that she would definitely like the Excalibur Q brand. That was why he considered this endorsement deal for her, and even made a phone call to fight for it with Stenson from thousands of miles away. As it turned out, all his efforts had not been in vain. Are you feeling better? I'm fine now. With you here, I wouldn't dare to fall sick, Tongning smiled. At this moment, Emoting wanted so badly to be by her side. stroke her hair and give her encouragement. But because of his collaboration with Hong Xian, it was temporarily impossible for him to fly by her side. The couple continued to talk sweetly on the phone. Long Jie and Fang Yu also left Tang Ning's room. However, after being triggered by Tang Ning, the two were reminded of the person in their hearts. Long Jie wondered what Lu Che's reaction would be if she were to give him a phone call at this time. After returning to her room, Long Jie sat on the bed in deep thought. In the end, she dialed Lu Che's phone number, but he did not pick up. Long Jie put down her phone and felt she was thinking too much. Lu Che wasn't anyone to her. How could he pick up her phone in the middle of the night? Taking a deep breath, Long Jie reminded herself to focus. She then put down her phone and headed into the bathroom to take a shower. However, halfway through the shower, she heard her phone ringing. Long Jie ignored the bubbles on her body and rushed out of the bathroom. As soon as she saw it was a call from Lu Che, she excitedly picked up the call. Lu Che. What happened? As soon as Long Jie heard Lu Che's raspy voice, she could tell he was in a daze. She really wanted to tell him that Tang Ning had secured the deal. But on second thought, Boss was happy that Tang Ning had secured the endorsement because he was Tang Ning's husband. But Lu Che had nothing to do with Tang Ning. So Long Jie opened her mouth, but no words came out. She even sneezed because she was covered in foam. Did you catch a cold? Lu Che immediately asked. Hearing Lu Che's concern, Long Jie immediately smiled like a child who had just eaten candy. No, I don't have a cold. Oh, that's good. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to sleep. You should rest early too. Okay. Long Jie hung up the phone in a daze. She had a lot of things she wanted to say, but remembering it was the middle of the night and how tired Lu Che was during the day, she didn't want to disturb him any longer. Most importantly, as soon as she hung up the phone, she felt a little lonely. She suddenly felt very lonely. Plus, she was good at comforting herself. Since Lu Che picked up her phone in the middle of the night, did that mean she was special in his heart? But the truth was, Lu Che was originally sleeping soundly. As soon as he heard his phone ring, he naturally reached out his hand and looked at the caller ID. If it was someone else, he would have hung up without a second thought. Unless it was Mo Ting. But as soon as he saw Long Jie's name, even though he did not pick up, he still ended up calling her back. Most importantly, after hanging up the phone, his originally heavy sleepiness suddenly disappeared without a trace. It couldn't have been because he missed her, right? Lu Che dragged his heavy mind back to bed. In reality, he wasn't someone who liked to open the back door for others. After all, he worked at Hairue. At Hairue, everything was done according to the rules. However, when it came to Long Jie, he wanted to make an exception for her. An exception for her. Long Jie sat in the living room for quite some time covered in foam. As a result, when she woke up the next day, she actually caught a cold. Her throat was completely hoarse and she couldn't speak. Seeing Long Jie in pain, Tang Ning looked at her questioningly. Last night you. What happened to me last night? Long Jie avoided Tang Ning's gaze guiltily. There was no way she was going to tell Tang Ning that she caught a cold while answering Lu Che's phone call. Tang Ning let out a gentle laugh. Deep down she understood. In front of her, Long Jie was like a blank piece of paper. Do you want me to call Lu Che over? Tang Ning, you have President Fang and I by your side. Isn't that enough? Lu Che has his own things to deal with. When did you and Lu Che become a family? Let's go, it's time to sign the contract. Long Jie sneezed as she put on a face mask. In such cold weather, Tang Ning's body had just recovered. She couldn't afford to catch another cold. Tang Ning did not say anything. But on the way to Excalibur Q, she sent Lu Che a message. What happened between you and Long Jie last night? She caught a really bad cold. Lu Che was confused. We simply made a phone call. Tang Ning recorded the sound of Long Jie coughing and sent it to Lu Che. When I returned to my room yesterday, she was fine. After seeing the message, Lu Che was a little confused. What did Long Jie catching a cold have to do with a phone call? In reality, Tang Ning's hint was extremely obvious. But she couldn't be too direct with her words. After all, this was a matter between Long Jie and Lu Che. However, sometimes the people involved were still confused, while the outsiders were already burning with anxiety. The three arrived downstairs at Excalibur Q's headquarters to sign the contract. But Qin Yu and her manager arrived earlier than the three. As soon as they saw each other, they were a little surprised. Everyone knew that Excalibur Q only had one spot for the Asian category. If they were all here to sign the contract, then what about Qin Yu? Of course, Qin Yu's manager had received a phone call from Stenson's assistant, so she was confident that Qin Yu would land the deal. As for Tongning, hasn't there been a rumor going around? A certain someone has a lot of tricks up her sleeves. Looking at the companies that have been destroyed one after another, you should know how capable she is. But if you can't win, you can't win. Chapter 224. Tongning ignored Qin Yu's manager's sarcasm and continued to maintain her calm. At this time, the elevator doors opened to reveal Stenson's assistant standing outside. As soon as he saw Qin Yu, he immediately approached her. "Hello, Miss Tang. Mr. Stenson is already waiting for you." As they stepped out of the elevator, everyone was stunned, especially Qin Yu and her manager. Their faces flushed red with anger. Tongning also instantly understood where the mistake Stenson was talking about happened. It turned out the assistant had made a mistake, and Stenson had forgotten to explain everything to his assistant. "Miss Tang. I'm not Miss Tang." Although Qin Yu was embarrassed, she still stated the truth. "There's no mistake, Mr. Statham. The person he wanted was Tongning. Miss Tang, it was you." The assistant pulled out the resume and flipped through it. After seeing Tongning's photo, he suddenly realized his mistake. "Oh God, I made a mistake." So the spokesperson that Excalibur Q wants to sign is Qin Yu or Tongning? Qin Yu's manager asked angrily. The assistant's face turned red as he stuttered as he looked at Qin Yu and then back at Tongning. For a long time, he couldn't say a complete sentence. On the other hand, Fang Yu directly said to Tongning, "Let's go, it's almost time to sign the contract with Stenson. It's not polite to be late." Tongning walked past everyone and walked to the front, leaving the awkward Qin Yu and her assistant behind. Qin Yu's manager was unconvinced as she dragged Qin Yu along. "We were also notified by Excalibur Q's assistant to sign the contract." Seeing this, Stenson's assistant's face turned from red to white. She didn't know how to deal with the situation. Seeing Qin Yu and her manager following behind, Fang Yu couldn't help but laugh. "If you can't win, then you can't. I don't believe that Excalibur Q would waste such a good resource like Qin Yu. Is there something wrong with their brains? Why would they use a nobody?" Fang Yu did not say another word. He knew if Qin Yu entered, she would only embarrass herself even more. Not long after, everyone arrived at Stenson's office. However, seeing Qin Yu following behind, Stenson couldn't help but feel a little awkward. He patted himself on the head and said to Qin Yu and her manager, "I'm really sorry, Miss Qin. This is all my assistant's fault. She contacted the wrong person. I'm really sorry." Excalibur Q chose Tongning as their spokesperson? Qin Yu asked straightforwardly. "That's right," Stenson nodded. "I'll get my assistant to escort you back to the hotel." "Can you tell me why?" Qin Yu's voice was suppressed. It was obvious she didn't understand Stenson's decision. If she had lost to a supermodel like Hu Jingjing, she wouldn't have said anything. But who was Tongning? She couldn't win against the others in Hairue, but couldn't she win against Tongning? This is the result of a vote by Excalibur Q's selection team. We believe that Miss Tang is more suitable to be the spokesperson for Excalibur Q than Miss Qin. What vote? If it's internally decided, then just say it. Qin Yu's manager couldn't control her emotions and spoke to Stenson in an unfriendly manner. However, Stenson replied straightforwardly, "That would be an insult to us and also an insult to yourselves." When choosing a spokesperson, not only does the model's influence have to be considered, the most important factor is whether the model is compatible with our product. Miss Tang is indeed more suitable than Miss Qin. I hope Star King can show their generosity. What do you mean by suitable? Stenson lost his patience as he said to Qin Yu's manager, "At least we don't need a model that can't be replicated." Hearing this, Qin Yu froze. Meanwhile, Qin Yu's manager spun around angrily. Mr. Stenson, I want you to apologize to Qin Yu. I am simply stating the truth. Indeed, in every aspect, Miss Qin is better than Miss Tang. But what we want is not the company's support. Plus, even if Miss Qin doesn't admit it, when it comes to professionalism, you are indeed inferior. How can you prove that? I've already asked someone to investigate in Beijing. Every single one of Miss Tang's works can cause a huge commotion. But what about you, Miss Qin? You've caused the Oriental trend in North America, helped TQ magazine go from an unpopular brand to a bestseller, helped LM's wedding ring collection become #1, and snatched the throne of Beijing's famous talk show, Feng Kai. Miss Qin, have you done all of this? Qin Yu choked on her words. She was suddenly speechless. Her mind was originally filled with words to refute Stenson, but she suddenly couldn't say a single word. Everything was stuck in her throat, making her feel uncomfortable and burning. After thinking about it carefully, she realized she really didn't have anything special to show. She didn't have any representative works. Even though she was easily remembered on the international stage, she didn't have any achievements that could cause a trend like Tang Ning's. Others might not know how difficult it was, but as a model, she was well aware. If there's nothing else, please leave. Seeing Qin Yu had nothing else to say, Stenson politely reminded the two to leave. Qin Yu glanced at Tang Ning as all of her achievements over the past few months flashed across her mind. She finally felt a lot better. There will definitely be a day when I can beat you. After speaking, Qin Yu left Stenson's office with her manager. However, her manager found it hard to swallow her anger. Who does Tang Ning think she is? Don't say that. Tang Ning does have some ability. After all, I can't refute Stenson's words. Qin Yu replied with a pale expression. Qin Yu, if you lose this endorsement deal, how are you going to explain yourself? Qin Yu's manager asked as she placed her hands on her hips. We've lost to Hai Rui once again. In fact, we lost to a model with no international status. If news of this gets out, where would Star King put their face? What else can we do? It's obvious that Tang Ning has a hard time beating you. As long as her contract is cancelled, then you won't win or lose and Star King won't lose to Hai Rui, Qin Yu's manager suggested. What do you want to do? Tang Ning has been through hundreds of battles. Do you think she's afraid of you? Qin Yu scoffed. Tonight, I'll go home and find out who her manager is before making a decision, Qin Yu's manager said thoughtfully. Actually, Qin Yu understood. Normally, when Star King competed with Hai Rui, Star King would always lose, but at least they were on the same level. But if she lost to such a low-level Tang Ning, what face and status would she have left in Star King? This was no longer a personal matter, it was a matter between Star King and Hai Rui. Chapter 225. However, Mo Ting was more sensitive than Qin Yu's manager. As soon as he found out Tang Ning had signed, he immediately instructed the PR department to send out a statement congratulating Tang Ning on becoming Excalibur Q's new spokesperson. So Qin Yu lost. Star King's artist director immediately contacted Qin Yu to ask her what had happened. The agency had put in so much effort and used such a powerful background. Yet the endorsement had still been snatched away by someone else. In fact, it had been snatched away by Tang Ning. Qin Yu was momentarily speechless. Meanwhile, her manager was furious. Hai Rui had acted so quickly that she didn't even have time to investigate who Tang Ning's manager was. The entire industry already knew that Tang Ning had pushed Qin Yu down. If Tang Ning tried to retaliate at this time, Star King would be targeted and their weakness would be used against them. So, not only could she not do anything, she had to pray for Tang Ning to succeed at her job. Who was Tang Ning's manager? Just like that, he had cut off any possibility of an accident happening to Tang Ning without giving her the slightest chance. Qin Yu also understood that Tang Ning had no chance of making a comeback with Excalibur Q. So she said to her manager, "Let's go back immediately." The manager wasn't willing to give up, but at this moment, she was filled with curiosity. When did Hai Rui's manager become so difficult to deal with? Not long after, Tang Ning saw the news. She suddenly had a few guesses about this mysterious manager. He couldn't make an appearance. Yet he was able to handle the situation in such a swift and decisive manner. Who else could it be? In reality, Tongning should have guessed long ago because Mo Ting had previously mentioned it. At that time, Tongning didn't take it to heart. But now that she thought about it, it seemed this man had already planned everything. President Fong, who exactly is Tongning's manager? He has been working behind the scenes, yet he refuses to make an appearance. Is he playing hide and seek? Long Jie lost her patience after seeing the news. There was no doubt that he was very capable. But as her manager, he refused to make an appearance. Wasn't he toying with her? Fong Yu tidied up his jacket and glanced at Tongning. Realizing she wasn't too curious about the answer, he smiled at Long Jie. He should be on his way. The reason he was absent previously was because he wasn't done with work. Plus, Excalibur Q's contract has already been signed. His reason for coming here is to help Tongning take the next step. After speaking, Fong Yu was silent for a few seconds before he continued. So my work here has been completed. I have already booked an afternoon flight back to Beijing. So soon. I still have a bunch of PR news to release, Fong Yu said anxiously. However, Tongning did not see any signs of nervousness on his face. Okay then, ahem. Long Jie did not say any more polite words because she had a serious cold. Fong Yu glanced at Long Jie and said, Long I long long, Long said. Go. Long Jie threw a pillow at Fong Yu. Actually, after interacting with Fong Yu for some time, one would discover that he was a very charismatic person. Not only was he eloquent and the face of Hai Rui's PR, he also had a humorous personality. On the surface, he appeared to do whatever he wanted, but in reality, he was like the special student that always slept in class. He always had his own way of doing things and was smooth when dealing with people. He was extremely likable. Fong Yu smiled at the two and returned to his room. As he carried his luggage and left, he did not even say goodbye to the two. Long Jie watched from the window as Fong Yu left. She then turned around and asked Tongning, Do you know who your manager is? I can roughly guess. Tongning stood up from the sofa and pulled out her luggage to find some medicine for Long Jie. Who is it? What kind of manager do you think Mo Ting will give me? Tongning asked as she moved closer to Long Jie. She pried Long Jie's face away from her so she wouldn't breathe on her face. Long Jie sat on the bed and analyzed. He must be very capable. Just like this incident, he handled it 100% perfectly. He knows how to take care of you and is even more meticulous than Fong Yu. He must be professional and understands you well. Most importantly, he must be able to plan for your future. Long Jie analyzed one thing at a time. In that case, who do you think fits these criteria? Long Jie tried to think of the names and looks of the managers at Hai Rui. Although they were all very capable, there was only one person that fit Tongning's criteria. Himself. Tongning looked at Long Jie like she was finally enlightened. This was the only answer Tongning could come up with. At first, Long Jie did not have much of a reaction. But after a few seconds, she suddenly jumped up from the bed and hugged onto Tongning's shoulders. Is this true? Boss is going to personally be your manager? You're not joking, right? Tongning held onto Long Jie's excited hands and nodded her head. He mentioned it before, but I didn't know he would actually do it. It wasn't hard to tell that Tongning had a lot of worries and concerns about Mo Ting being her manager. The first thing she thought of was Mo Ting's work. With how busy he was, he couldn't possibly have the time to run around with her all the time. Plus, she didn't want Mo Ting to be so tired. Then it must be true. Long Jie was still excited. How many people in this world could make Mo Ting their manager? There was only Tongning. All he cared about was his wife. This isn't what I was hoping for. Long Jie understood Tongning's worries, so she calmed down and hid her smile. Don't worry, since boss has made a decision like this, he will definitely be able to coordinate his work. After all, he doesn't want you to worry. Plus, haven't you heard of this saying? When a couple works together, work isn't tiring. Tongning, think about it. You were born to be a model. As long as you have the chance, you will definitely create miracles. All you need is a manager that can protect you, and boss has the strongest ability. If the two of you work together, wouldn't you be invincible? Long Jie winked at Tongning with an unconcealable excitement on her face. Look, isn't the incident with Excalibur Q the best proof? With a few simple words, Boss was able to change the other party's criteria. Isn't this proof of his ability? He is simply amazing. Plus, he may be busy with work, but he can delegate some of his responsibilities. Rather than letting him get tired in a place where you can't see him, why not let him be by your side? At least, you can monitor his rest. Why not? If you think he is tired, you can help him share his burden. Between a couple, what can't we do? Long Jie asked. Chapter 226. This matter was not within Tongning's control, so she felt a little panicked. Emoting was, of course, the best and one of a kind, but she couldn't imagine the public's reaction. Would this cause any harm to Emoting? Above all, Moting's work was the thing she was most worried about. But Excalibur Q did not give Tongning any time to think. After signing the contract, Tongning immediately began filming the commercial that afternoon. As Tongning was working with European and American models, she did not have an advantage in terms of stamina, especially with the discomfort in her stomach. After 6 hours of continuous work, Tongning could no longer keep up. Long Jie was a little anxious. There were a few times she tried to ask the cameraman to take a break, but the cameraman refused to listen to her. Or he simply said, "Everyone is working hard and it's not just your models that are working hard to block me." Being in a foreign country as an assistant, Long Jie felt helpless when it came to matters like this. But from start to finish, Tongning endured. One set after another. She even had to reshoot multiple times due to the mistakes of the other models. "Tongning, are you okay?" During a break, Long Jie quickly handed her a glass of warm water and asked about Tongning's condition. Tongning touched her cheeks and nodded her head. "I should be able to hold on." "The contract doesn't say this." Are these European and American models trying to kill themselves? Just as Long Jie finished complaining, a thin female model fainted with a thud. She fainted just like that? Isn't this a common occurrence? Tongning handed a glass back to Long Jie. "Can we get some rest now? Come, let's continue." The studio staff called out. Long Jie lowered her head and looked at Tongning's feet. Wearing stilettos for 7 to 8 hours straight must have been torture. "What's wrong with you? You've been like this in the past. Just because Emoting has become my manager, do I become more valuable than before?" Tongning laughed as she looked at Long Jie. She had seen shoots that were even crazier than this in order to rush things, so this was nothing. "But it's already been 8 hours. Don't worry, I can still hold on." After speaking, just as Tongning was about to ask the makeup artist to touch up her makeup, her arm was suddenly grabbed by a strong force. Tongning was stunned. Long Jie was also stunned. In reality, everyone on set was shocked by the appearance of this incredibly respectable man. The studio erupted with all sorts of noises. Some people had surprised expressions on their faces, while others started whistling. They thought Emoting was also a model, a top-quality model. However, Emoting simply circled his arm around Tongning and gestured for her to sit to one side. Tongning struggled for a moment as she stared into Emoting's obsidian eyes. But after a few seconds, she gave up. She obediently sat down on a chair and handed everything over to this man. Long Jie was so excited that she secretly clapped her hands. Boss was here. Their savior was here. As expected, Moting walked over to the photographer and said, "The contract states that Tongning's working hours are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If Tongning has exceeded the stipulated time limit, her normal working hours should be limited to 2 hours. Are you trying to breach the contract?" In order to speed up the progress, the photographer squeezed out the rest time for the models. However, none of the European and American models protested. So the photographer replied, "Everyone is rushing to speed up the progress. Do you expect us to wait for Tongning alone? If they are willing to be squeezed out by you, that is their business. But my Tongning cannot. Everything will be carried out according to the contract." After speaking, Emoting turned around and approached Tongning amidst the size of the crowd. "Can you still walk?" Tongning looked down at her eyes. Just as she was about to respond, Mo Ting had already wrapped his arms around her waist and lifted her in his arms. Hey, after all this talking, who are you? The photographer asked from behind. He had heard that Tong Ning had only brought along an assistant and a few bodyguards. Tong Ning's manager. Long Jie followed behind the couple and secretly smiled. After bullying boss's wife like this, it would be strange if he had a good attitude. But it went without saying Long Jie was once again shocked by Mo Ting. Yesterday, when they were signing the contract, Fang Yu was obviously present to look at the contract. But from the way boss spoke, it was as if he had already memorized everything. Tong Ning leaned into Mo Ting's embrace as he placed her in the car. Seeing his angry expression, she couldn't help but ask, "Have you really decided to be my manager?" "What else?" "Miss Tang," Mo Ting asked as he drove. Normally, he would call her Mrs. Mo. It seemed he had a clear separation between work and life. He immediately put on the airs of a manager. "Now that work is over, can you get off work?" Mo Ting turned his head and glanced at Tong Ning as he sighed helplessly. He couldn't bring himself to criticize her. Even if he was angry, he couldn't bear to say anything harsh to the person he loved. Soon they returned to the hotel. As soon as they entered the room, Mo Ting pressed her down onto the bed and kissed her on the lips. After feeling her for quite some time, he finally got up and knelt beside her legs to remove her shoes. Looking at her heels and instep covered in blisters or broken skin, he felt a little uncomfortable. Tong Ning quickly sat up and wrapped her arms around his neck from behind as she slowly pressed her body against his. "I've never seen your feet in good condition. Also, why did you continue working when you knew that you were being pressured by the photographer?" Hearing his complaints, Tong Ning laughed on his back. "When I was working, everything wasn't good. My feet hurt, my stomach hurt, and I felt extremely dizzy. But when I saw you, everything was fine." Mo Ting was at his wit's end. There was nothing he could do. So he stood up with his back on her back and walked towards the floor-to-ceiling window. "I won't let anyone bully you anymore. At that time, if I had resisted, I would have been hated by the models and photographer. I didn't know what they would do behind my back. So before you arrived, I could only choose the safest method. You know what I'm thinking? Plus, Manager Mo, hurry and get off work. You talk too much. I want my husband." Mo Ting swayed a few times with his back on her. "You think I talk too much? When have you ever seen me care about someone like this? Stop talking. Let's go have a shower." Mo Ting did not say another word. He knew Tong Ning was truly tired, so he helped her shower and placed her on the bed. "I live opposite. If there's anything, give me a call." Tong Ning immediately woke up. "You're not sleeping with me? While I'm at work, we'll follow the contract." Mo Ting tucked her in and turned off the lights. Tong Ning watched as Mo Ting left, and her lips curved upwards into a smile. The panic from before had completely disappeared. Chapter 227. The next morning, Tong Ning started work at 8 a.m., so she woke up at 6:30 a.m. After instructing Long Jie to prepare breakfast, she snuck into Mo Ting's room. Yesterday, after landing, Mo Ting went straight to the studio. He did not have time to tidy up his documents and clothes, so they were scattered all over the sofa. Tong Ning knew he was tired, so she gently tidied up his things and placed the fragrant breakfast on the dining table outside the bedroom. Finally, she walked over to the bed barefooted and sat down. She stretched out her hand and gently stroked Mo Ting's handsome face. Mo Ting seemed to have woken up a long time ago. He held onto Tong Ning's fingers and rested his head on her lap. Tong Ning's heart ached as she messed up his hair and held onto his ringed left hand. "In a moment, Long Jie will accompany me to the shoot. You can get some rest, okay?" "Not today," Mo Ting said with a hidden meaning. Tong Ning looked down at the watch on her wrist and realized it was still early. So she lay down on the bed and hugged Mo Ting. "Aren't you going to ask me why I insist on being your manager?" Tong Ning thought for a moment and smiled. "You've already done it, so I have to trust in your decision, even if I am afraid and have my reservations. I will never be the one to hold you back. If you aren't afraid, why should I be?" Don't be afraid. In the entire industry, no one is more capable than my manager. What else do I have to be unsatisfied with? Ting. You've already made me confident enough. You've also made me put down my mask and strong shell. You've made me better. Mo Ting quietly held onto Tang Ning's hand without saying a word. The relationship between husband and wife had always depended on each other. Their goal was to make each other's lives better. The couple lay in bed for 40 minutes. In order to arrive at the studio before 8 a.m., Mo Ting lifted the blankets and got out of bed. However, he had a habit of sleeping naked, so Tang Ning couldn't help but blush. In the end, Mo Ting let out a gentle laugh as he held onto Tang Ning's chin and instructed, "I'm going to have a shower. Help me find some clothes." "Okay. We've been husband and wife for so long. Aren't you familiar with my body? I can't believe you're blushing." "Because it is the perfect body." After speaking, Tang Ning walked over to the wardrobe and pulled out a new set of clothes. At 8 a.m., the group arrived at the studio on time. Tang Ning quickly got into the mood as she put on her makeup and tried on her clothes. However, compared to yesterday, because Mo Ting was present today, the photographer was a lot more restrained. In front of Tang Ning, he was gentle, caring and took good care of her. But in front of outsiders, he was always an unapproachable king, a son that no one could look up to. "Who is that person?" "I heard he is Tang Ning's manager." "I don't think so. He's so good. Why didn't he become a model?" "Should we go up and strike up a conversation?" The surrounding staff whispered amongst themselves as they worked. Some even tried to flirt with Mo Ting. However, before they could get close, Mo Ting's piercing gaze made them freeze in fear. Long Jie stood by Mo Ting's side feeling proud. It felt so good. As soon as boss arrived, no one dared to look down on them anymore. An entire day of filming went by. Mo Ting, apart from supervising, also took out his own work to deal with. As evening approached, Stenson and a few other representatives from Excalibur Q arrived at the studio to check on the progress of the commercial. However, as soon as they arrived, their eyes were immediately drawn to Mo Ting. Stenson felt he had seen this man somewhere before. He looked very familiar. He even asked his assistant quietly. In the end, his assistant replied, "Sir, he is the CEO of the famous entertainment company, Hirue Entertainment, Mr. Mo." No wonder. Stenson immediately thought of the person that gave him a phone call earlier. Tang Ning's manager also had the surname Mo. Could it be? Stenson did not dare to delay as he walked over and extended his hand towards Mo Ting. "I didn't expect President Mo to grace us with his presence. Sorry for not going out to greet you." "You're too polite, Mr. Stenson. My Tang Ning has caused you trouble." "Not at all. Tang Ning is very outstanding." Stenson was not stingy with his praise. "It's a pity Tang Ning isn't in a good state today. Perhaps it's because she worked too long yesterday. Otherwise she could have done better," Mo Ting said with a hidden meaning. As soon as Stenson heard this, he understood what Mo Ting meant. "Don't worry, President Mo. Excalibur Q will make sure Miss Tang Ning maintains a happy working mood." Stenson let out a sigh in his heart. He was also glad he didn't choose Qinyu. Tang Ning didn't appear to have much power. But who would have thought, she actually managed to get a famous entertainment company's CEO to act as her manager. It was clear to see. She had a bright future ahead of her. This was Hirue's way of protecting Tang Ning when it came to competing for resources. "I wonder if Mo Ting would do me the honor of joining us for dinner tonight?" "It would be my honor. However, I may need to bring a female companion." Mo Ting replied politely as he placed his gentle gaze on Tang Ning. Stenson nodded his head and smiled. However, the three of them did not manage to have dinner together. That night, a scandal broke out in Beijing, and this scandal involved Hu Jingjing. An entertainment reporter revealed that Hu Jingjing had been living with a gambling addict for 10 years, had multiple abortions for him, and was even beaten up by him. As soon as Tang Ning saw the news, she suddenly thought back to the night at the Beijing private club. Hu Jingjing had told her not to make it public. Not to make it public. But in just a few days, Hu Jingjing actually got into trouble. She was an international supermodel. Overnight, she was suddenly linked to a gambling addict. With so many scandals going around, her reputation took a huge hit. Hai Rui immediately started PR and blocked 70 to 80% of the news. But it still created quite a stir. In fact, it was comparable to Han Xiner. There were even people that started spreading rumors, claiming it was all because Tang Ning had joined Hai Rui. Whenever she was involved with a company, it would always end up in a tragic state. Chung Tian Entertainment's collapse was the best example. Bullshit. Long Jie threw her phone aside after seeing the news. Tang Ning had no time to care about herself. She simply couldn't help but worry about Hu Jingjing. In the study room, Mo Ting was having a video conference with the higher-ups of Hai Rui, giving Fang Yu full authority to handle the situation. But, even though they managed to suppress the news, they couldn't stop the rumors from affecting Hu Jingjing. For some reason, Tang Ning suddenly felt a little afraid. She was afraid that if her relationship with Mo Ting were to be made public, there would be another bloodbath. So Tang Ning asked Mo Ting for Hu Jingjing's phone number. After hesitating for a moment, she gave her a call. Chapter 228. Tang Ning thought Hu Jingjing wouldn't pick up the phone, but she actually picked up. I am Tang Ning. Afraid that the man would hang up, Tang Ning immediately revealed her identity. I know. Hu Jingjing's voice was a little raspy. It was obvious she had just cried. But there was a sense of stubbornness in her voice. It seemed she had not given up yet. In the news, everything in the news is true. Hu Jingjing acted like she had finally found someone to confide in. The almighty international supermodel, Hu Jingjing has a gambler at home. She's even had an abortion 3 times, and is always beaten by him. I met him when I was 17, and we started dating when we were 18. At that time, I never thought about being a supermodel. But I wasn't rich and my parents needed money. So he suggested I become a model, and used all his resources to help me find resources. In the first few years, we were very happy. Tang Ning was even happier than you and President Mo. But as the industry became more and more tempting in the end, he couldn't control his lower half and ended up in a relationship with another model. But I'm cheap, I can't let him go. However, he always thought that I was the one who got someone to plot against his lover. So from the day his lover passed away, he never looked me in the eye again. I don't remember how many years it has been. I kept my promise and left half of my income at home. But I know that he always gambled with it and often drank. When he was drunk, he would punch and kick me. How many days did I think it would be better if I just died like this? Everything would end once and for all. Until I met my current manager. He discovered me and Hai Rui accepted and nurtured me. In fact, I once thought that I would work like a slave for President Mo for the rest of my life. But I never expected that things would still be exposed one day. I've worked so hard to keep it a secret. As Tang Ning listened to Hu Jingjing recount her experience, she could imagine how much love a woman would have for her man despite having reached such a high position. You've already done very well. He was the one who exposed the news to the media. Because I refused to pay him, he actually sold the news to Imperial Star. Bitch! Tang Ning cursed in her heart. He was even worse than Han Yufan. I'm done. I feel much better now. Tang Ning didn't know why Hu Jingjing trusted her so much. Perhaps, it was because they had both been through a lot of bad things, so they felt a sense of empathy. I will announce my withdrawal from Hai Rui. I don't want to implicate my family, especially you. I know it wasn't easy for you to get to where you are today, but rumors are already flying everywhere. Jingjing, since Hai Rui is your home, you have no reason to leave. I'm sure you've already gotten used to this life. Perhaps you are tired and fed up, but listen to me. If I can meet Mo Ting, you can also meet someone that truly treats you well. Hold on a little longer. Hold on a little longer. Hu Jingjing didn't answer. She only smiled bitterly and hung up the phone. Tang Ning put down her phone. As she thought about Hu Jingjing's situation, her body trembled. The industry made her feel afraid, and the uncertainty of the human heart made her panic. After Mo Ting finished his meeting, he saw Tang Ning's pale face. He reached out his hand to support her. Realizing her hands were also cold, he immediately carried her onto the bed. What's wrong? Tang Ning hugged onto Mo Ting's arm in a daze. The person that betrayed Hu Jingjing is the man she has loved for many years. Mo Ting immediately understood Tang Ning's fear. He reached out his hand, cupped her cheeks and began to kiss her. Tang Ning could feel Mo Ting's breath. She closed her eyes and kissed him until her body began to heat up. Only then did she pull away from Mo Ting's lips. Are you feeling better? Much better, Tang Ning nodded her head. The two women looked at each other. Mo Ting didn't need her to say anything to understand what she meant. Hai Rui was definitely going to get back at Star King. Most importantly, they were going to make sure the traitors got what they deserved. Otherwise, what hope did the world have? What else was there to give someone the courage to live again? Tang Ning calmed herself down and pushed Mo Ting. Go back to work. I'm fine. And Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply pulled Tang Ning up and into the study room to continue with his work. However, he wanted Tang Ning to be within his line of sight the entire time. Tang Ning watched as Mo Ting worked seriously and thought everything out perfectly. Wasn't this how the man she admired should be like? After work was over, Tang Ning wanted to return to her room. But Mo Ting carried her in the shower and lay in bed with her. Tang Ning could feel Mo Ting hugging her from behind. She couldn't help but laugh. Didn't you say during work, everything will go according to the contract? Yes, but I am the CEO. Does that mean the CEO can cheat? Tang Ning turned around and continued to laugh as she lay on top of Mo Ting's body. For you there's nothing I can't do, Mo Ting said after a moment of silence. This one sentence clearly resounded from above Tang Ning's head, causing her body to freeze in surprise. I know you're afraid of losing me, but I'm more afraid of losing you. Tang Ning suddenly let out a gentle laugh. Mo Ting understood the fear in her heart. It turned out, she wasn't the only one that was afraid. Mo Ting was also afraid. Afraid? So, why must I be your manager? It's always been because of you. Only because of you. Tang Ning's heart was suddenly filled with confidence. This was Mo Ting's love. So, she was no longer influenced by Hu Jingjing. She simply believed in the feelings in her heart. This man was right. This man was worthy of her love. I still have one more day of work. After I'm done, we can return to China together. Ting. Promise me you won't let Star King and that man get away with it. Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply responded with his actions as he flipped over and pressed Tang Ning under his body. Tang Ning was moved as she hooked her arms around his neck. The couple had a tacit understanding when it came to this. Even a simple action was enough to understand each other's desires. However, in the heat of the moment, Tang Ning couldn't help but bite Mo Ting's shoulder. It was as if she wanted to leave a permanent mark on his body, a mark that belonged solely to her. This was exclusive to Tang Ning, and no one should even think about touching it. Chapter 229. Hu Jingjing's scandal spread like wildfire. Even with Hai Rui's forceful suppression, they couldn't compete with the news that was released 3 times a day. Hu Jingjing was once an international supermodel. In the eyes of others, she was unreachable. But because of this scandal, Hu Jingjing's status plummeted. She was ridiculed and attacked by netizens. In fact, it even affected Hai Rui. Feng Yu's PR strategy was to get Hu Jingjing to play the sympathy card. After all, she was originally a victim. But Hu Jingjing's mental state wasn't looking good. If he wanted her to step out bravely, it wouldn't be easy. Saving a person's body was easy, but saving a person's heart was harder than climbing to the heavens. Feng Yu had never been betrayed before, so he couldn't understand the pain and shame that seeped into his bones. But Tang Ning knew how it felt. So, Tang Ning spoke to Feng Yu on the phone. That night, Feng Yu arrived at Hu Jingjing's apartment. Her assistant tidied up Hu Jingjing's messy room, while Feng Yu took a look around her home. The marks left behind by the man were still there, but he had left the woman he had lived with for so many years in such a terrible state. What do you want to drink? Get it from the fridge. I don't have the strength to do it myself, Hu Jingjing said dispiritedly as she sat on the carpet. Feng Yu looked at Hu Jingjing and noticed her clothes were disheveled, her hair was messy, her face was pale and her eyes were lifeless. Tongning asked me to come over. She said you needed someone by your side. After speaking, Fang Yu felt he was being a little unreasonable, so he continued. She's quite a busybody, isn't she? She can't even handle her own business. I think she misunderstood. She probably thinks I treat her as a friend. Hu Jingjing replied with a bitter smile. Don't tell me you don't treat her as a friend? Fang Yu turned around and sat down on the sofa. He placed his elbows on his knees and tilted his head to look at Hu Jingjing. Tongning and I only interacted for a short day. It was the day Star King stole our resources. Did you know? On the runway, she is much better than Qingyu. She is a natural model. But the selection process was full of twists and turns. While waiting for the call, if it were you, you would have turned around and left Milan because of your pride. Even I was about to ask her to give up, but she asked me for the phone number of the partner. She personally told the other party that if I couldn't be your spokesperson, I would feel very regretful. I don't know how much the other party was moved by those words, but at the very least, if I heard it, I would definitely give her another chance. Hu Jingjing quietly listened to Fang Yu talk about the runway and Tongning. She couldn't deny that in this short 1 to 2 minutes, she had forgotten all her pain. All she could think about was how it would be like if she was the one in Italy. Fang Yu observed her expression and laughed. Actually, you are still deeply in love with your career. You don't need feelings, do you? Hu Jingjing grabbed the bottle and gulped it down. She neither admitted nor denied it. Tongning said your silence is allowing that man to hurt the people around you. You, your parents, your friends, Hai Rui and Tongning. It's fine for you to shoulder everything on your own, but have you thought about the people that are worried about you? How many years has Hai Rui trained you? How can you bear to be humiliated by Star King like this? After hearing this, Hu Jingjing's eyes finally showed signs of emotion. Right now, everyone is saying that you are in trouble because of Tongning's curse. In fact, some of your fans have already started to attack Tongning. What did she do wrong? Why should she pay for your cowardice? Hu Jingjing, men aren't like this. Men are also affectionate. As for your man, how much does he hate you for him to abuse you for so many years? Worst of all, you didn't do anything wrong. Hearing this, Hu Jingjing suddenly burst into tears. She was the one that had been betrayed. She was the one that had been hurt, and now, she was the one that had been destroyed. Fang Yu stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Hu Jingjing, allowing her to cry. After she calmed down, he finally let her go. After a moment of silence, Hu Jingjing finally lifted her head and said to Fang Yu in determination, "What should I do? I will cooperate." Fang Yu let out a sigh of relief and suddenly smiled. "That's more like you, our heroine. Tomorrow morning, we will hold a press conference to clarify the truth. Trust me, as long as you cooperate, I will definitely teach Star King a lesson." Hu Jingjing nodded her head. "I will pull myself together." Fang Yu patted her on the shoulder encouragingly. He could hear the strength in her words. When a person's heart was pierced by 1,000 arrows, they were invincible, because they had nothing to fear. When Tongning received the news, she was still in the middle of her commercial shoot. Perhaps because she felt the power of rebirth, Tongning was even more focused on her shoot. She was in perfect condition and her popularity surpassed that of the European and American models. In reality, in a commercial with a mix of men and women, due to the fact that men were more powerful, the first thing that consumers saw was a male model. But Tongning's gaze was exceptionally stunning. She had a wilder and more aggressive expression than a man's. This was the last day of filming. After finishing, Tongning immediately wrapped her arm around Mo Ting's and said, "Let's go back to Beijing. Aren't you going to take a day off? I want to cheer for Hu Jingjing," Tongning begged. Mo Ting didn't know what to do. He simply held on to her hand and said goodbye to Stenson. After saying goodbye, he immediately booked a plane ticket back to Beijing. However, this time, the two of them would appear at the airport together. They no longer had to pretend to be strangers, and they no longer had to avoid the paparazzi one after another. Although, as they arrived at the airport, Tongning still subconsciously observed the reporters. But, Mo Ting reminded, "Walk properly. If you want the media to take photos, do you think you're sneaking around like a thief? But are you coming with me?" Yes, I'm coming with you. I am your manager. Shouldn't I be coming with you? Mo Ting hooked his arm around her shoulder and pulled her closer to his side to prevent her from being squeezed away by the passers-by. Tongning looked at the crowds of passengers and noticed there weren't many reporters gathered at the airport. She let out a sigh of relief. After taking one last look at Mo Ting, she walked ahead on her own with Mo Ting and Long Jie following behind her. This was something the media did not expect. When they were following them, they refused to let them. Now that they were no longer following them, they took the initiative to release information. However, someone still spotted Mo Ting and Tongning. They approached them for autographs and asked, "Tangjia, why are you with President Mo?" Chapter 230. Tongning froze for a moment before replying honestly, "Because we've finished working together." The young woman smiled as she suddenly jumped in front of Mo Ting and handed him her notebook. "In that case, can I also get an autograph from President Mo? It's not easy for me to come across one." Mo Ting glanced at the young woman, and then looked at Tongning. Tongning shrugged her shoulders. She was the one that didn't want to avoid it, so she deserved to be asked for an autograph. Mo Ting glanced at Tongning helplessly as he received the black pen from the young woman, and confidently signed his name. He then turned to Tongning and asked, "Can we go now?" Tongning smiled. This time, she was a lot more cautious as she put on her sunglasses and face mask and boarded the plane. "Since we're already back, let's attend the Super Queen Awards ceremony as a guest." Super Queen was actually the most lucrative model rankings over the past year. Hua Jingjing was ranked at the top, but in her current state, it was a little worrying for her to go on her own. So, Mo Ting arranged for Tongning to attend. He did this to show her the difference between herself and the top 3 models, and to cheer Hua Jingjing on. On the day of the ceremony, he was going to make a move. He was going to use the Super Queen Awards ceremony to officially announce that he was Tongning's manager and raise her status to new heights. "It's up to you," Tongning said in a tired voice as she trusted Mo Ting completely. Meanwhile, Mo Ting hugged Tongning and lowered his head to place a kiss on her forehead. At this moment, he didn't want to think about anything else. All he wanted to do was place the best things in front of her. Because of Hua Jingjing's popularity, the media placed all their attention on Hai Rui's upcoming press conference. Very few people noticed that Tongning and Mo Ting had already returned to China. On the way back, Tongning heard the same thing. "Don't say that Hua Jingjing is pitiful. Perhaps her gambling addiction is even bigger, and she simply hides it too well. I never expected that a supermodel's life would be so messed up. She's even had 3 abortions. I'm afraid she can't give birth anymore. I'm sure she's still a virgin. How disgusting." After hearing these words, Tongning suddenly let out a cold laugh. She thought about how many times she had become the topic of discussion after meals. She suddenly felt sad. Everyone thought they were glamorous, but they had no idea of the bitterness and helplessness behind the scenes. It was said that celebrities were loved by the most people. In fact, celebrities had the most enemies. Sitting in the nanny van, Tongning suddenly wrapped her arms around Mo Ting's arm. As long as Mo Ting was there, she could truly feel at ease. Mo Ting placed Tongning on his lap and gently stroked her hair with his warm palms. "I'll wake you up when we get home." "No, Ting, you deal with Hai Rui. There's no need for me to do something like this." Star King's little tricks were nothing in his eyes. Feng Yu has full authority to handle it. In that case, I want to see Hua Jingjing. Women should have some intimate words. Mo Ting did not reject. He simply asked Lu Che to drive an unassuming car out of the garage and drive Tongning to Hua Jingjing's apartment. However, Hua Jingjing's home was surrounded by paparazzi. Hua Jingjing had no way of leaving and Tongning had no way of entering. So, Tongning gave Hua Jingjing a phone call. Not long after, a well-disguised Hua Jingjing appeared and boarded Tongning's car. Lu Che then drove the two to the quiet seaside. Hua Jingjing had a scarf wrapped around her face. Even when no one was around, she did not remove it. Tongning seemed to have guessed something was wrong, so she reached out and removed the scarf. Hua Jingjing's face was covered in bruises and bruises. "Did you get hit again?" Hu Jingjing threw the scarf on the beach and spat out a mouthful of blood. I had a showdown with the jerk. In the end, he flew into a rage and tried to kill me. I took the opportunity to escape. Tongning looked at her quietly without saying a word. Hu Jingjing leaned against the front of the car as tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. He wanted all of my assets, or he would expose us. I really wanted to die with him. I'm so tired, so tired. Tongning looked at Hu Jingjing and asked in seriousness, "Tell me, how did the jerk's lover die?" "She was beaten to death. She died on the streets. He thought I hired someone to do it." "Didn't you look for the truth afterwards?" Tongning asked. "How could I not? But I still need someone to believe me." Tongning immediately found the crux of the matter. This was the key to defeating the man. "Tell me all the evidence you have and send someone to investigate." "Jingjing, the best way for you to get revenge on that man is to make him regret it. Make him turn around and beg you. But you didn't even look back. You are still you, the supermodel. This time, it's not like you don't have a chance to make a comeback." Hu Jingjing looked at Tongning and was suddenly impressed by her clear thinking, especially when she heard Tongning say she would make the jerk regret. There were so many times in the past when she had nightmares where she wanted to strangle the man beside her to death. But in the end, she couldn't bring herself to do it. This time she was no longer weak. She closed her eyes and said, "Okay." After chatting, Hu Jingjing looked at Tongning and suddenly burst into tears and laughter. "Have you always been this calm, or is it because of President Mo's guidance? He pulled me back from hell. He gave me a brand new life. Tongning, you and President Mo need to continue loving each other. Sometimes seeing people in love is a form of strength. It makes you feel like you can receive love." Tongning turned around and leaned against Hu Jingjing. "I will do my best to satisfy everyone. Let's go home. Feng Yu has arranged for a press conference." Tongning thought for a moment and suddenly said to Hu Jingjing, "Let's not go to the press conference. Let's go to the hospital. The pity card isn't just for crying. We need to show our female compatriots real pain." Hu Jingjing understood what Tongning was trying to say and nodded her head in agreement. The two people who appreciated each other, at this moment, did not need to say anything to each other. They were already considered friends. Even though, strictly speaking, they were in a difficult situation. Afterwards, Tongning returned to Hyatt Regency. Not long after, the entertainment news broke. On the eve of the press conference, Hu Jingjing suffered another new injury. She was suspected to have been threatened to keep her mouth shut. Feng Yu quickly followed the news and revealed the truth. It was Hu Jingjing's handwritten diary. The diary was written from the perspective of a woman who had been hurt for many years. It described the pain and oppression she had suffered over the years. As the diary was revealed to the public, it resonated with many people, especially women. As soon as they read the diary, they began to cry. And the trigger was the sight of Hu Jingjing suffering a serious injury. The female compatriots immediately exploded with power. It didn't take long before public opinion began to change. Chapter 231. Wuxia, Tongning is amazing. Feng Yu's PR is also amazing. The public opinion is already leaning towards us. Inside the hospital room, her assistant looked at the news with a joyful expression. "But promise me from now on, don't be so stupid." Even I cried for a long time after reading that diary. Hu Jingjing felt like she had been pushed to the brink of death. Apart from anger, the pain in her heart had lessened. Perhaps it was because of Hai Rue's counterattack. "All along, I thought Tongning was just a pretty face and had no right to be considered your sister." "Did you think President Mo would find a pretty face?" Hu Jingjing asked. The assistant scratched her head and smiled embarrassedly. Hu Jingjing lowered her head and thought for a moment. Suddenly, she lifted her head and looked out the window. She spoke in a tone that even she couldn't believe. "Tongning's power can save a person's heart. Do you still think she is just a pretty face? I can completely understand why President Mo likes Tongning. In fact, I feel in this world, only Tongning is worthy of President Mo. As for anyone else, I refuse to acknowledge them. I don't know what Tongning was like in the past. All I know is, the current Tongning can see through a person's soul. The assistant didn't understand what soul meant. All she knew was, the reason Hua Jingjing was able to recover so quickly was because of Tongning. In fact, she could sense a brand new Hua Jingjing. Perhaps, from this day onwards, Hua Jingjing's kindness would take root in Hua Jingjing's heart. So from this day onwards, she was going to help Tongning get what she wanted. Everything. Because of the diary and the violence, Hua Jingjing managed to turn the tables. But if Star King thought this was all Hai Rui could do, they were underestimating Hai Rui and Mo Ting. Afterwards, the testimonies of passers-by, the retaliation of fans, the support of neighbors and friends, and the praise of business partners. Hai Rui suppressed Star King from all directions and turned everything that the jerk revealed into evidence of his violence. Hai Rui swept Star King aside and directly turned Hua Jingjing into a woman with a tragic past. They even made sure her sensational past attracted the attention of many authors and film companies. They even wanted to publish a book and adapt it to the big screen. Of course, regardless of whether these rumors were true or not, those that once hated or cursed at Hua Jingjing could no longer hate her. In fact, some even bought a newspaper page and directly apologized to her. Thus, Hua Jingjing came back to life. No matter what the scumbag said, the reporter's focus would not be on him. That night, the hospital room was quiet. Meanwhile, Hua Jingjing's assistant was helping Hua Jingjing manage her fan club. After a while, the assistant looked up at Hua Jingjing and said, "Sister Hua, what happened?" Hua Jingjing picked up the phone and looked at the fan club. They were all discussing how Hua Jingjing was exposed because she was cursed by Tongning. It's all because of that cheap model. Otherwise, how could our Jingjing be in such a situation? Exactly, Tongning is a poison. Wherever she goes, she causes trouble. Why don't we go and slander Tongning? Seeing the fans talking one after another, Hua Jingjing logged onto her account and stepped in. The 3 fans that just said Tongning isn't a good person. I hope they can stop liking me. As soon as the fans saw Hua Jingjing appear, they immediately exploded with messages. But Hua Jingjing still replied in seriousness. I will only say this once. Without Tongning, I would not have been reborn. So from now on, if any of Hua Jingjing's fans says one bad thing about Tongning, I, Hua Jingjing, will definitely tear them apart. Oh God, Jingjing is so domineering. Jingjing, are you feeling better? Since you're saying this, Tongning has helped our Jingjing before. Did you hear that? From now on, don't say bad things about Tongning again. Tongning isn't a poison. She is truly a good person. Hearing Hua Jingjing's words, the fans in the chat group finally calmed down. Afterwards, they all expressed their support. Jingjing, don't worry, I will pass on your message to all the Hua Jingjing fans. From now on, Tongning will be protected by us Hua Jingjing. We will definitely support you to the end. Go Jingjing. Seeing this, Hua Jingjing was satisfied as she handed the phone back to her assistant. Because of Hua Jingjing's action of tearing apart her fans online, it attracted a lot of attention in the fan circle. After all, it was rare for a celebrity to tear apart their own fans for someone else's sake. And this was how Hua Tang's friendship started to spread. Late at night, Tongning was still in the study room looking through the information Hua Jingjing had gathered. She was going to find the culprit and help Hua Jingjing clear the injustice she had suffered for so many years. Beside her, Mo Ting was handling some work. Seeing Tongning being so serious, he put down the documents in his hand and sat down beside her. You've already done enough for Hua Jingjing. Ting, what if the jerk uses Hua Jingjing to hire a killer to create more hype? No one believes his words anymore. Mo Ting said in seriousness as he pulled her into his embrace. I'm not trying to stop you from finding the culprit. I simply don't want you to tire yourself out. What if I told you that Hua Jingjing is my friend? Mo Ting smiled and picked up the documents. Mrs. Mo, do you think I'd make it so that you don't have any friends? I'll look through it with you. Tongning hooked her arms around Mo Ting's neck and kissed him on the lips. She then let go and continued to look for clues. But after looking for quite some time, she still couldn't find anything. This made Tongning a little depressed. All she could tell was, the jerk's lover wasn't a good person either. There was definitely more than one man. So, Emoting put down the documents and said to Tongning, "Sometimes, you don't have to find the truth. You can create a false impression." Tongning turned her head and looked at Emoting. The couple could read each other's minds with just one look. "I understand." Tongning replied with 4 words. "I don't care how the lover died. At the very least, she wasn't a clean person. Because of her, Hu Jingjing has suffered for so many years. It's time for her to suffer." Tongning understood what Emoting was trying to say. He wanted to create a false impression that the woman had been killed by another man. He wanted the jerk that had tortured Hu Jingjing for so many years to have a taste of what it felt like. The true love that he had held on to for so many years was nothing more than a joke. He was just one of the men that the woman had. Emoting wrapped his arms around Tongning from behind and placed his chin on her shoulder. He then took a deep breath. "When I'm with you, I don't need to say too much because you understand. That's because you understand me. That's why you deserve the best." As soon as Tongning heard this, she furrowed her brows. "What are you going to give me this time?" Chapter 232. The aftermath of the Hu Jingjing incident was exactly as Tongning expected. The jerk actually exposed the fact that Hu Jingjing had hired a hitman to kill someone to the media. He even promised to invite his lover's parents to testify in front of the media. The netizens couldn't help but sigh. They couldn't understand how such a shameless person could exist in this world. Anyone with eyes could tell that Hu Jingjing really knew how to play these tricks. She wouldn't have to endure so many years of violence a long time ago. Yet, the jerk was stubborn. The netizens looked like they were waiting to see what tricks Hu Jingjing had up her sleeves, as they continued to focus on the farce surrounding Hu Jingjing. In private, Tongning asked Lu Che to investigate the parents of the jerk's lover and find out what their attitude towards their daughter's death was. Meanwhile, Hu Jingjing replied nonchalantly, "Let them appear on the news. I want to see how heartless people can be." Fang Yu looked at Hu Jingjing questioningly. "Are you saying we don't need PR for this incident?" "There's no need," Hu Jingjing answered with certainty. When she said these 2 words, there was a sense of relief in her tone. Fang Yu was still worried, so he asked again, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. I want to see how the jerk is going to make a comeback." Although Fang Yu trusted Hu Jingjing, he still made the necessary preparations. They sat in the hospital room and watched as the jerk, Yu Wenxin, was interviewed. "All you do is sympathize with Hu Jingjing being beaten, but you don't know how ruthless she is. All you see is me hitting Hu Jingjing. Why didn't you see Hu Jingjing hitting someone else? Back then I wronged her. But we were still married. Plus, while I was with Yuewen, Hu Jingjing and I had already broken up. You had no idea that Yuewen wasn't a third party. Hu Jingjing has been lying to you from the beginning. She hired someone to kill Yuewen. She is the culprit." Sitting beside Yu Wenxin was a well-educated couple. From their appearance and temperament, they seemed to have received a high level of education. As Yu Wenxin spoke, the couple's faces were ashen. This made the media think that the couple was angry after finding out the cause of their daughter's death. "Uncle, Auntie, I've let you down. I've let Xiaowen die with everlasting regret and tarnished her reputation. I've let you down. Today, please tell me the truth." The couple turned to look at Yu Wenxin. First, Lu Yuewen's father took the microphone, but he stood up at the same time. Then, he did something that shocked everyone. He took the microphone and smashed it on Yu Wenxin's head, very hard, very fierce. Fortunately, Yu Wenxin dodged quickly, and only a little skin was scratched. All the reporters present were in an uproar. "Beasts that are worse than pigs and dogs," Mr. Lu scolded. "Although I don't want to reveal our dirty linen, I can't ignore my conscience. When you were with Yuewen, you were still in a relationship with Hu Jingjing. You cheated on her, and the entire Lu family knows about it. Are you trying to deny it? Dream on. I don't want to appear on the news, and I don't want to seek justice for my daughter. She wasn't wrong, she deserved it," Father Lu said emotionally. "But when it comes to Hu Jingjing, the 2 of us need to say a few words. Over the past few days, the news has been blowing up. From this moment, We finally found out that Hu Jingjing had suffered so much and was tortured by an animal. Because of this, my wife and I felt uneasy for many days. Coincidentally, that animal, Yu Wenxin, came looking for us. Right now, I want to tell everyone that my daughter's death has nothing to do with Hu Jingjing. While my daughter was cheating with this animal, she was also involved with a hotel owner. Because the owner's wife found out, she ended up like this. We only found out about this a few years later. At that time, we even called the police. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. I don't care if Yu Wenxin, this bastard, really misunderstood that Jingjing hired a hitman to kill my daughter, or if he's just trying to scheme against Jingjing. We, the old couple, will now announce the truth. I only hope that Jingjing can escape from the sea of bitterness as soon as possible. I also hope that the heavens will bless the good, and let those scum be punished. No, even going to hell won't be enough to wash away their sins. The truth was finally revealed. It was told by Lu Yuewen's parents. Regarding Yu Wenxin's affair and Lu Yuewen's murder, the couple didn't care about their face and innocence anymore. They didn't want to hurt other people. Yu Wenxin was dumbfounded. In the past, Hu Jingjing had repeatedly explained to him, but he had never listened to her. He had a deep-rooted belief that Hu Jingjing was the culprit. She had killed the person he loved the most. It was because of this obsession that he continued to torture Hu Jingjing. But now Lu Yuewen's parents were telling him that the culprit was someone else, and that Lu Yuewen had another man. So what Hu Jingjing said was true. However, every time Hu Jingjing said this, he would kick and punch her. How could this be? How could this be? Was Hu Jingjing really innocent? Yet, he had tortured Hu Jingjing for so many years, and he had tortured her so viciously. Yu Wenxin, who was still being interviewed, knelt on the ground helplessly. Apart from shock, his expression was filled with regret. Inside the hospital room, Hu Jingjing's eyes were empty as she watched the scene unfold. Tongning ran over and hugged her as she gently comforted her. Now that the truth has been revealed, you can start anew. After so many years of injustice, Hu Jingjing cried and laughed at the same time. She then released all the pain in her heart. I'm free. In that case, hurry and adjust yourself. At the Super Queen Award ceremony, you will still be the Super Queen. You also need to catch up. That day, Tongning was happier than if she had received an important endorsement. So, as she returned home to prepare dinner for Mo Ting, the corners of her lips curved upwards. That evening, Mo Ting returned home. As soon as he saw Tongning in the kitchen, he couldn't help but run over and hug her. You made such a sumptuous meal. Are you celebrating? Ting, you sure created this illusion well. What happened to Hu Jingjing is the truth. I didn't create an illusion, Mo Ting replied. Tongning turned around and looked at Mo Ting in shock. She then smiled. That's even better. Mo Ting wrapped his arms around Tongning's waist and placed her on the countertop. But I'm not good. How many days have you neglected me? I didn't neglect you. You're lying. Mo Ting bit Tongning on the lip. In that case, how do you plan to punish me? Tongning stretched out her arms and hooked them around Mo Ting's neck. Chapter 233. Mo Ting lowered his head and pressed the tip of his nose against Tongning's. During the day, I am your manager. I enslave you to work. At night, I am your husband. My job is to make sure you can't get out of bed. Come, let go of me. Mo Ting loosened his grip on Tongning's arm and turned off the stove. He then carried her into the bedroom and placed her on the bed. Mrs. Mo, you've become more and more naughty. After speaking, Mo Ting's palms began to wander. It didn't take long before his hands came into contact with Tongning's thighs. However, Tongning subconsciously shrank back. Mo Ting sat up curiously and looked at her knees. He noticed there were bruises on her fair skin. What happened? My foot slipped in the bathroom. Mo Ting got up and found the first aid kit to apply some medicine. Afterwards, he did not touch Tongning again. Instead, he coaxed her to sleep after dinner. That night, Tongning felt uneasy and her body was cold. When she woke up, she realized there was no one beside her, and the bathroom lights were still on. Tongning got out of bed and tiptoed over. She noticed Mo Ting had pulled out a non-slip carpet from the cupboard and was laying it out neatly on the floor. He wasn't supposed to do these things, but because he had something in his heart, he couldn't let it go. It seemed she had to be touched like this every day. So Tongning approached Mo Ting from behind. While he was squatting down, she leaned on his back. "Stop laying it out. My heart hurts." Mo Ting paused and straightened his back. Without saying a word, he carried Tongning out of the bathroom. However, the next morning as Tongning woke up, she noticed the bathroom was covered with a thick non-slip carpet. Tongning stood in the doorway and laughed so hard that tears almost came out of her eyes. While the various versions of Yu Wenxin's interview were being released, the promotion for Super Queen had already begun. At this year's award ceremony, Hu Jingjing was one of the favorites to receive an award. Hai Rui also confirmed that Hu Jingjing would be attending. This was the first time Hu Jingjing had appeared in front of the public since her scandal. Everyone was worried about her mental state and were waiting for her to accept an interview after the award ceremony. However, the media did not expect that Tongning would also be attending the award ceremony, even though she would only be a guest. But the industry was already talking about her and Hu Jingjing's deep friendship. So there were rumors that Tongning was attending to cheer for Hu Jingjing. Actually, it wasn't wrong, but it was also wrong. After all, Tongning had no idea what Mo Ting was planning to do at the award ceremony. In the CEO's office of Hai Rui Entertainment, Fang Yu looked at the article that Mo Ting had asked him to release. His expression was a little shocked. "President Mo, are you planning to let everyone know you are Tongning's manager? Will this be a little too much?" Fang Yu did not dare to finish his sentence. After all, for an almighty president to become a manager was already lowering his status. Not to mention whether the other higher-ups would agree. Wouldn't it blow up the entertainment industry? What? Do you think it will be difficult to announce this news? Mo Ting lifted his head and asked Fang Yu. "President, if you place Tongning on such a high pedestal, she will only be targeted by more people." Fang Yu was worried about Tongning's safety. After all, Mo Ting was personally acting as her manager. How much jealousy would there be? Plus, the public will definitely have their own suspicions about your relationship. In fact, they may even deny all of Tongning's hard work. As for the Backview dream man from before, I think you should reconsider your decision. Tongning no longer needs to prove her professionalism. She already has enough work to represent the industry. It's only a matter of time before she reaches the pinnacle. My aim is to clear her path and let everyone know that she has the ability and background to back her up. As for your worries, how many people in the entertainment industry would dare to spread rumors about me? They will simply feel shocked, mysterious, unbelievable, and curious about our relationship. Mo Ting rarely explained things to his subordinates. It was rare for Mo Ting to explain things in such detail to his subordinates. As they slowly uncover the truth, Tongning will be completely immersed in the mysteries. In other words, Tongning would no longer be on a level that the small fries below her could reach. Fang Yu understood what Mo Ting meant, and was surprised at how much Mo Ting cared about Tongning. In the entire entertainment industry, there wasn't another person like him. So Fang Yu held onto the script in his hand and smiled. "President, you treat Tongning too well." Mo Ting swiveled in his chair and raised his hand to reveal his wedding ring. "She is my wife. I want to give her happiness." Fang Yu nodded his head. When it came to Tongning, he had nothing but respect. "Don't worry, I will handle this matter well. When the news is released, the entire entertainment industry will be shaken." Fang Yu was actually a little excited. It was like an ancient immortal had accepted a unique disciple. But the most exciting thing was Mo Ting's master and disciple were husband and wife. Tongning had no idea what Mo Ting was planning. On the eve of the award ceremony, she was still on the phone with Hu Jingjing. By now, the two had completely become best friends and practically kept a record of their conversations. "Yu Wenxin knelt outside my house for an entire night," Hu Jingjing said as she waited for the makeup artist to put on her makeup. You won't go soft on him again, will you?" Tongning was also in the wardrobe picking out a dress. After 10 years of nightmares, I finally learned my lesson. Did you think I wouldn't learn my lesson? Hu Jingjing giggled. Perhaps, I've already lost all feelings for the jerk. All these years, I've been struggling with the injustice I've suffered. Now that the truth has been revealed, I will naturally let it go. That's good. Then let him kneel. Shall we walk the red carpet together tonight? Tongning smiled and replied. I also have a responsibility to protect you from the media. Hearing Tongning's response, Hu Jingjing put down her phone and asked her assistant, Is the jerk still downstairs? Aha, the assistant nodded. He's still kneeling and he keeps slapping himself in the face. Huijie, you can't forgive him this time. Forgive? Hu Jingjing repeated this word over and over again. Looking at the scars on her face that no amount of makeup could hide, she felt it was ridiculous. From now on, the word forgive is not in my dictionary. I am an international supermodel. What kind of trash is he? Forgive? He must have the right to do so. As soon as her assistant heard this, she smiled. That's right. Our Jingjing is also an international supermodel. From now on, what man can she not get? I hope all the jerks in the world will run away and die somewhere else. Sooner or later, they will be struck by lightning and receive their retribution. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.